11. We have two administrative functions to start with. The first one is we're going to change the order of the presentations tonight. Appeal 2870 we're going to do in front of Appeal 2869. We've also scheduled, in case of an overflow, next Wednesday for any hearing, any appeals we do not finish this evening. The next one is we have a continuance for appeal number 2871, and I have a letter from Mr. Fromhold. Dear Mr. Miller, on behalf of Mr. Frank Scarino, we request that zoning hearing board hearing scheduled for December 15th for the above referenced property be continued. The required continuous fee of $200 is enclosed. The continuation is requested so that we may further address neighbors' concerns about the proposed townhouse development. Please schedule this matter for the next available hearing, which we have been informed is January 19th. Accordingly, we hereby grant the zoning hearing board an extension of time through and including January 31st to conduct a hearing on this matter. Please be advised whether we should appear before this board this Thursday evening in connection with this request. If you have any questions or require additional information, please call sincerely Fred Fromhold. Mr. Fromhold? Do you? Yes. Okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Fromhold? No? Okay. Continue for the next meeting. It's fine. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if anyone is here for that hearing, it will be continued till next month, January 19th, third Thursday. Anyone who gave us letters, they will all be read then, anything that's in the folder. Okay, the next is a continuation from the October meeting, Appeal 2862, applicant 134 Partners LP, property located at 134 North Wayne Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania, and zoned Wayne Business Overlay District. Applicant requests approval for their building identification sign, as approved by the Design Review Board, hearing of August 10th, 2011. Pending zoning approval per code references, section 28122, C2. No wall sign shall exceed a sign height of 15 feet above the existing grade. One wall sign, sign A on the parapet, is higher than the 15-foot above grade. Section 28053.15B, no projecting sign shall be lower than 9 feet above grade or higher than 12 feet above grade. D, no projecting sign may be larger than 4 square feet. And M, sign shall not be illuminated. You, sir.
Thank you. My name is Brad Palmer.
My name is Greg Brzezinski.
I'd like to pass out a supplement, please.
Hello.
Do you have the microphones up there? Great, perfect.
You were both sworn in last hearing, were you not?
Correct.
Yes.
Do you want to should we number these? Do you want the pictures to be, you're up to A13 now. Do you want each picture to be a number? How would you like to handle that?
Could we call this B? The packet that you have in hand is A, and it's A1, A2, A3. Could we call this?
No,
Yeah, we normally just
no. We'll just do it in sequence. It'd be better if you keep
Okay.
it A13. That
Sorry.
way they'll know that there's one coming after it. If we do B, then they may miss the B.
All right.
Okay. It's for
Thanks.
appellant. That's why it's A. No, this is a new one. That's an old one. Okay. So we're going to call this one A13.
So the first photo is A13, and then
Yes.
every one after that is the next number.
Well, do you want to do that? Do you want to rather do it that way, John?
It gives you, the ability to refer to these
Okay.
individuals.
All right. So the first photo is A13.
And A14, A15, and then we come to the plans. The first plan would be A16, and the second plan would be A17.
Okay. So now we have 17.
Okay, thank you. There are two separate signs in our appeal, and I'd like to address this sign first, which you see up on the board. It is in your packet under A11.
I thought last time you were here, we decided that had always been there. There was a sign there.
We didn't.
Am I wrong?
We didn't get a decision on it last time, but yes, there's a sign on the building.
Okay. I mean, anyone have a, did we decide that last time? I thought,
We didn't vote anything
Yeah.
last time.
no, we kind of thought the sign was always there. Okay, but continue, I'm sorry.
The appeal is for the height of the sign, which exceeds the code limit of 15 feet for a top height on a wall sign. The building needs a building identification sign on this facade, and due to the historic architecture of the facade, it's extremely limited in where you can place a sign. There's a sign previously on the building, and this replaces that sign.
The sign would be in a stone-like material, similar to your package. The limestone coining that is around the perimeter of the building.
Excuse me, you have to speak up, I can't hear you.
Okay. Limestone, currently the building has limestone in all the corners, and the new sign will match the limestone as a cast resin material, similar to the images in this photograph.
Okay. Any questions about that sign? Okay. Why don't we go to the other one? I think that's the one that's more in question.
Yes.
Is the side marking sign on the side of the building. I think that has more issues than,
Thank you. This regards a building identification sign for the side of the building. This is the south facade. And the context of our appeal and of the hardship on this signage is, in order for the building to be used, it had to provide handicap accessibility to all spaces and all levels in the building. And that was able to be achieved by putting an elevator in one location. That was the only spot that would achieve that. And that location is in the central part of the building. And the central part of the building therefore puts the public access to the elevator also in the side, in the central part of the building. So the new main entrance to the property is halfway down the side, and that provides access at grade to handicap entrance. And due to its location being midway down, it's 83 feet back from the curb, and you can't see from the sidewalk that is an entrance to the building, let alone that it's a main entrance to the building. And the proposed signage identifies it as a main entrance to the building and is of sufficient scale to be able to see it from the sidewalk. The several issues with the sign in terms of height, in terms of size, and the need for illumination.
I'm sorry, this is going to be illuminated?
Yes.
Okay,
That-
we have a problem, and I believe you, have we advertised for an illuminated sign?
We did. We updated the legal notice.
Okay, yeah, because the one that we have in the agenda, let's see. Oh, okay, N.
And that was since the previous submission, so I apologize that that fact didn't get,
Okay, I see it. No
Recirculated.
projecting, yeah, M sign shall not be illuminated. They want variance from the illumination requirement.
Was the application amended, the actual application amended to deal with a variance for illumination?
I think it's been
Good
advertised
question.
as such, but I haven't seen an amendment to the application.
Because I think that's what we talked about last time, that you needed to amend the application to request variances for any of those things that didn't comply.
But if they've
I don't have a
advertised-
revised application. It
I
doesn't-
don't have a
it wasn't
revised
filed.
application, but if they've asked for, if they've noticed it, I think you could, amend the application on the record now. The key thing is whether it's been properly published, because if it's not properly published, then, even if we give you an approval, it's potentially subject to challenge forever and
Sure.
isn't worth very
Right.
much. So you're amending the application to comply with the revised notice, including that you would like the sign illuminated?
please.
Mr. Chairman, is that acceptable?
Yeah, I think when I read the legal notice, it did say, "And signs shall not be illuminated."
But they're looking,
I mean,
I think that with their per code references, I think it's not the most, I wish they'd say variances are requested from the following requirements. I think that's the clear meaning of the notice, but I wish the phrase variances or relief are requested from the following requirements. I mean, I think it's clear enough, but I would prefer it. But, I mean, look, it is what it is, and I do think it's clear what they're looking for here. They want an illuminated sign. They want
And-
relief from the requirement that the sign may not be
And they said as
illuminated.
much on the record last time, so.
what is it being made out of? If you're going to go over that.
Excuse me, Charlie? Charlie? Over here, Charlie. Could you turn your microphone on, please?
I could do that. I thought I had it, I'm sorry. You're going to go over its material and all that, what it's made of?
Yes,
Okay. Go ahead.
okay.
Review the height again.
Okay, so for the height, the issue is that it's a shared street between pedestrians and vehicular traffic, and the sign and the canopy beneath it over the new side entrance need to be a sufficient height so that trash trucks, delivery trucks can clear it. So it's been placed at 13 feet 9 inches off grade, which is sufficient clearance for any vehicle under there. And that, by definition, pushes the sign top height above the code height limit.
The sign of, the size of its sign itself, if you refer to A15, that you just numbered in your package, I don't know if you can zoom in on this photograph a little tighter. This compares actually the zoning ordinance, the sign, location, not location, but size of the sign is limited to 4 square feet. This shows the sign of the size of a hanging blade sign. If we were to locate that sign, which is small at the front of the building, toward the back, it would be ineffective for the need to get people visually down this street, since we are located some 83 feet from the curb.
We took the feedback from the last meeting. We revisited this sign too in terms of the scale of its size and reduced it to a minimum where it would still be effective. It's 30% smaller in the A15 drawing than it was in the original proposal.
The A15 or the A16?
A15 is shown in the rendering. A16 is the flat-on elevation, which notes its height, the bottom of the canopy located at 13.9,
Yeah.
to be compliant with the trucks down the street. And then the side, previously the sign itself was 20 feet. It has been lowered to 14 feet. The 14.4 includes the canopy itself below.
Okay, what is how wide is it?
It's 20, I'm sorry,
Not shown on the plan.
27 inches.
27 inches, and that would be in the previous package, I'm sorry, on the sign at
That's
2
okay,
feet 3
27's
inches.
okay, right? You can do 30. So E's okay.
That is the width of the current canopy.
The structure.
I'm sorry, that's the width of what?
The canopy itself. In this photograph on A14, or I'm sorry, back there, A15 or A13, the rendering shows the Suburban logo on the blade itself. Below here, that's the actual canopy under construction in place, showing it projecting 2 feet 7 inches. I'm sorry, 2 feet 3 inches from the wall itself.
The canopy and the structure of the sign have been approved per construction plans. And the sign, as originally proposed, larger than it's going to be now, were approved by the Design Review Board. The sign, in terms of materials, it's an aluminum sign. The letters will be metal cast aluminum letters per code. All the materials are fully compliant. In terms of our appeal for a lit sign, this sign, the lighting effect desired would not be direct lighting on the sign, but the letters would be backlit. They call it halo lit lettering, which is the highest quality and most aesthetically subtle way to light a sign. And what effectively it does is it backlights the letters so that the letters appear in the black letters. You can see them as black letters against a slightly lit background, as opposed to actually being lit from the front.
I don't see any written specs in the materials for these materials. If the sign is approved, we probably ought to specify that, if that's what the board wishes to do. So the specifications, if approved, would be that the sign is made of aluminum, and
Couldn't we just say that they would be made of compliant materials? rather
that would
than-
be of compliant materials.
I think the,
rather than stick
if
with
you
the
look
head
at
of
A17,
Yeah.
I think it kind of says aluminum panel. Isn't
Back
it?
in the original signage package that was submitted, the letters are
Oh,
called.
yeah, I see it.
All right. So I think it's part of the drawing. A17 is what it's made of.
I think originally, the metals are cast aluminum. Now previously, we had another material, so now code compliant.
If it's helpful, the materials haven't changed at all throughout the whole process. It's the same materials that we
mistaken
submitted to
before.
the Design Review Board, and we had a mock-up provided by the sign maker that had.
I thought one of the problems before was that there was some plastic or,
I was mistaken in saying that they were.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And the signage people confirmed that they are cast aluminum.
I have a question. Does this project, don't you need 280C as well? Are you, because it says D, and you should be asking for 28053.15, because you're in the Wayne Overlay District, not 28122. I think that's the correct code that you should be quoting.
Would you just read what that
Yeah,
says,
I'm
please?
gonna, let me get it from you. It says, no part of the projecting sign shall extend into vehicular traffic areas. And one of the reasons why you need it as high as you need it is because to let trucks go by, right? So you need a variance for that as well.
What's that section, Charlie?
Yeah, it's 28053.15C. No part of a projecting sign shall extend into vehicular traffic areas.
The sign itself is actually contained within our property setback line. We own 2 feet.
One of the things you said, the reason why you're so high was because
Well, we didn't want any
trucks to hit
potential
it.
for a truck to hit
Correct.
it.
So technically, you're saying that it could be, in fact, in the traffic pattern of
But
trucks
not
going
at
in and out of the
13
alley.
feet 9 inches.
I'm not
Yeah.
so sure it's in the traffic area, that's why
Well,
we
I'm
split it
looking
up.
at this, John, if you look at the picture, it
Yeah.
looks like I mean, that's a pretty small alley for a truck to go down.
Well, I
We've
mean,
been
the
through this
question is if
before
it's high
when,
enough, it's not, is it in
pizza
the
pla- or
traffic
the-
area? If it's too high for a truck to ever get it, is it in the traffic area, even if it overhangs the traffic area?
Yeah, but it says if it is in the traffic, it can't, I don't know, I mean, I'm
We'll-
kind of
we'll-
reading that.
we, look-
What do
I
you
mean,
think?
it's-
Anyone else? Yeah, anyone else see that? Or am I just pulling too much
No,
out?
you're not,
You're just identifying another variance that they need.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah,
Not necessarily a problem, just we want to know what we have to give you to
yeah.
enable you to go do what you
If
want
that
to
did
do.
apply, does it apply to private?
Okay, there's a
Driveways?
canopy there, so it's probably okay.
I think the key thing is dimensional variance relief for this sign.
Yeah.
I see bollards in your future, protecting your
Are there-
building anyway.
Are there bollards there?
But you have, no, but you have something sticking out. Are those vents or fans that you have sticking out there projecting into the,
They're lights.
oh, they're lights, yeah.
that-
You may
there are
want to put a couple
there are
bollards in there to
bollards
protect your lights from truck mirrors.
Further back. Well, that's a good suggestion.
I don't see them.
Where do you see the bollards?
Oh, they're further back, in front of,
Is that the one that's knocked over? All the way back?
There are ballards located at the rear of the property, near the
Okay.
rear of the property.
All right, any questions? Are you done? You have more?
I would just like to say, the sign in this location is really key because of our entrance being down this alleyway. and
Because of the
having-
elevator, right?
Yeah, because of the ADA being compliant, and
Okay.
the building would not have worked unless we would have put the entrance at this elevation, at this location. So having a sign that identifies the entrance is very important for this building.
Why don't we just reel off the specifics so we make sure we understand? Looking at 285-13-15. A says signs may have a backing or be constructed of shapes or single letter forms for accommodation thereof. That's not a problem.
Right.
B, no projecting sign should be lower than 9 feet above grade. And you're going to be, how many feet above grade?
Starting at 13 feet.
13 feet.
9 inches.
And the top, 13.9? And the
Correct.
top is going to be where?
At, do the math. 27, 28 feet, 1 inch.
28 feet, 1 inch.
Yes, I think he needs B, D, and M. No, he doesn't need M anymore. Yeah, B, D, and M, I think is what we need.
No, he needs them.
Yeah, I said B, D, and M is what he needs.
Yeah, he needs D.
Yeah, and he needs M.
What is the square footage of your sign?
The sign is, let's see,
Is it larger than 4 square feet?
Yes.
yes.
Is it bigger than a bread
It's-
box?
It's 28 square feet.
Yeah, I thought it was something like 27, 28 square feet.
Okay, you're okay under E. F. G, the pins are going to be at least 2 and no more than 6 inches?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't need a problem with that. It's not near another sign. It's going to be made of antiqued or painted metal?
Painted metal.
Painted metal. Okay, so you don't have a problem with that. You're okay with K? Sign should be fixed by hardware that is mounted to the building. Mounting brackets shall be made of non-rusting metal. No wires or cables shall be used to support the projected sign.
Yes.
Comply.
Sign shall not be permitted to swing.
Correct.
And sign shall not be illuminated. There you need a variance.
So it's B, D, and M.
B, D, yeah.
Any
Yeah,
questions?
You know what we ought to do? I think that I would personally read C, that they're over it, but I'd throw C in just for the heck of it to make it perfectly clear. I think they're not in the traffic area because they're too high, but, you know, as long as we're making sure if the board wishes to approve the sign.
Doesn't need to be advertised, does it?
No, because I think it's just dimensional, it's the
Okay.
same dimensional stuff.
Okay.
This one is harmless.
Okay. So we're looking at B, C, D, and M, right? You're looking for variances on those three issues?
Yes, thank you for going through those.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for going through those. Make sure we cover all
Do
bases.
you have anything else that you want to add, put in the record?
I don't.
No? Any questions for them? Anyone in the audience have anything to comment or say? Okay, you want to move that your exhibits be entered in the record?
So moved.
Pete, you want to do this one?
I move that we approve the, both signs. Are we dealing with both signs at this one time?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Both signs as outlined in accepting B, C, D, and M for the blade sign.
Noah?
I think we should specify that the blade sign is allowed to be, to start at 13 feet 9 inches above grade and extend to 28 feet 1
Isn't
inch
that in the drawings?
above
We could
grade.
just say as the drawing specifies.
Is that all clear enough in the drawing that we
I'm
can
going to refer
attach?
to the
Yes,
drawing.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as
Okay.
depicted.
As per drawing. Okay,
Is the square footage specified in the drawing also?
yes.
It is,
No.
it has not been revised. It's the same width, it's just shorter.
Yeah, we should mention, not to exceed 28 square feet and not to exceed a width of
27 inches.
27 inches.
27 inches.
20,
Okay, what
the
was the
square
square
Well,
footage would be
that's on, yeah,
27
they have
by-
it on here, 14 feet, 4 inches high, and 2 feet, 3 inches wide.
So that's,
It doesn't have the square footage, but it has the dimensions.
What is the square footage? 28 square feet? Not
no,
to
it's
exceed?
bigger than 28.
Well, since we're giving a variance, that's the square footage, I think we ought to specify the
That's
limit.
fine. I just didn't want to make, I'm
Well,
not objecting at
I
all.
apologize, I gave him the number 28 square feet, but
What
it's
is
a
the
little
number?
more than that.
What is it?
29.
Because it's
Somebody added up.
27 inches times
Got a phone?
14 foot
It's
4.
32 feet, 6 inches.
32 feet, 6 inches.
32.6 square feet.
32.6 square feet, a little
Well, no,
over
32
30.
feet, 6 inches, that's 32.
No, it's not.
32.6.
32.6. Not
Oh,
6
point
inches.
6,
6,
it's not,
6.6.
as opposed to 30.
32.6 square feet. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. No? Okay, fine. You have it, those are your signs.
Thank
We
you.
didn't
Very
vote.
much.
Yeah, we just did.
Oh.
I just asked everybody. I
Okay.
said, no, are you, and you said yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ay, 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 ay. Appeal 2867, applicant Michael and Lisa Murphy, property located at 146 Browning Lane, Rosemont, Pennsylvania, and zoned R2 residential. Applicant seeks release from section 28020 to construct a front porch addition in which the encroachment into the front yard setbacks, which will encroach.
My name is Steve Young. I'm the builder on the
Sir, I'll let
project.
you swear you in first. If you
Sure.
raise your right hand, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your name and address.
Steve Young.
Is this your house?
No, I'm the builder on the project.
Do you have
Yes, I do.
power of attorney?
You have the original power of attorney with you, or did you hand that into the township?
I handed it, it's into the township.
You have the original power?
Is it in the folder? Okay.
I mean, as long as it's, you know, the one that you sent me and they dated that one page, it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, that is correct, John.
I'm representing Mike and Lisa. They're out of town on a family commitment, and so I'm going to handle it for them. Mr. Ryan sent me an email and requested some additional dimensions put on the plot plan, and I have copies
Yes,
of them.
please, that we could put that up. No, I get one, though.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Bill, where did you put that?
I believe it's stapled to the front, Charlie, of the folder.
Help me here. I have the right one?
we, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
do we want to do the exhibits
Okay,
now?
okay,
Because I don't
okay.
think the exhibits are labeled yet.
Yeah, I was going to do that next. I was looking for the power of attorney, so I could put that label. Okay, why don't we,
Is this plan different than the one that was attached to the application?
Yes, very minor. It's, the relief that we are requesting is the front, it's shaded. We labeled 17.28 feet and a total of 20.9 square foot is outside the building envelope.
this is, the one I have that's in the folder is no longer good.
That's no longer good.
Okay, so I want to mark these exhibits before we
That's
go any
fine.
further.
Whenever you're
Please.
ready.
Okay, I'm going to call A1, the application.
Okay.
I have 3 pictures. We'll call the first one, it says
All right, okay.
corner view A2.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, the application, by the way, the deed, in my packet, the deed and the power of attorney are separate.
Yes,
Okay,
mine
fine.
also.
All right, so which one are you marking A2?
Corner view. Meadowwood Road is A3. Browning Lane is A4. We'll call the deed A5.
Hold on a second.
Okay. Oh, what did I do with it again?
Okay.
The power of attorney A6. And you saw that, correct, John?
Yes, I approve the power.
And the new deed the new plan he handed tonight, A7. And the residence plan, I guess,
Yeah, the ADI plans.
the ADI plans is A8. That's all of them, right?
That's all I have.
Okay.
We're here tonight to seek relief. We have a patio being proposed on this, on our plans, A8. And we are outside the building envelope by a little bit. Now, if it's just the patio, we don't need relief. So we need relief because we're proposing to put a roof over top of it.
Well, can I ask you a point of clarification?
Yes, sir.
In your application, it says front porch slab is 21 square feet into front yard. Is that an existing front porch
No,
slab?
sir. That's proposed.
Oh. It didn't look like there was one in the pictures because of all the vegetation, but it said it in the present tense, so I wasn't sure if you were asking to put a roof over an existing patio
No,
or to
that's-
install a whole new porch.
So,
My mistake in verbiage.
so going by the A7 plan.
But I don't think the patio is in question.
Oh, yeah,
It
well,
might-
that's for us to decide, sir.
No, what I'm
But we
saying
need
is-
the facts, we just
I'm-
need the facts.
I'm sorry, based on my conversation with the township, that we would be permitted to we're permitted to put the patio in, but we need relief to put a roof on top of it. That's my understanding.
Okay, I understand that's your understanding.
Okay.
I mean, let me just, it seems to me that based on the new plan, you have a long triangular sliver.
Yes.
That's 17.28 inches long, 17.28 feet long. Its greatest intrusion outside of the building envelope is 2.42 feet, and it involves 20.9 square feet out of a proposed 204 square foot addition. Is that correct?
Yes.
That sliver is only about a tenth of the rest. Looks like just eyeballing it might be a little bigger than a tenth. It's only a tenth?
No, he's asking for 20.9 square foot. I mean,
Piece.
that's almost de minimis. You know,
Well,
and the way
I have to tell you, it's actually, that's maximum. If you refer to the building plans, my porch, proposed porch is only going to come out 7 foot, not all the way to the end of the building that I'm showing on the plot plan. On the plot plan, I reflected the roof, not the patio, because since the roof was in question, the roof is coming all the way out to the offset. So we could be as little as 13 square feet.
I think even, my advice to the board is under the circumstances, the board would be within its discretion to consider this as de minimis relief.
That's what we're kind of talking.
That's totally up to the discretion of the board, by the way. The board can't be compelled to grant de minimis relief, but the board could, I think this is within what could be discussed as de minimis relief.
I think it's de minimis, and that along with the way that the shape of the lot, and the building, the small sliver of building plan, the building lot that he's allowed to build on, I kind of think between de minimis and a hardship, I don't even think it's an issue, just in my personal opinion. Anyone have anything? Noah?
I am bent to the will of the chairman.
It must be December.
There's a first
that's
time
2
for
months in
everything.
a row. This is more than I can take.
Is Nick Keneally in the room?
I guess the chubby guys with beards this time of year like to give presents to people. I should have worn my red sweater.
That's that poem you did. That's what's doing it. You know, you wrote it, and then it's carrying forth. Okay, Peter.
Yeah.
Tim.
Well, we said we have to move the exhibits be part of the
I
record.
think we ought to find out if there are any
You need to move the
objectors.
exhibits be part of the record.
I'd move that the exhibit.
Does anyone have anything to say in the audience? Okay.
Is anybody-
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Fine.
Thank you.
Application 2868, applicant Bruce Tackenberg and Lisa Cohen, property located at 230 South Wayne Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania, and zoned R3 residential. Applicant seeks relief to construct an addition to the rear of their home, which is closer to the property line than required side yard setback. Applicant seeks a variance from section, God bless you, section 28025D1 of the code relating to the side yard and aggregate, God bless you, side yard.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was going to say, it's a couple weeks here. Months.
You both raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I do.
Yes.
And state your names for the record, please.
Lisa Cohn.
Bruce Trachtenberg.
You'll see from the plot plan here, we have a classic pie-shaped lot, and we have the home all the way in the rear of the narrow portion of the pie. So I'll start with you, Bruce, and first, you own the property with Lisa?
Yes, we do.
And when did you acquire the property?
Summer of 2004.
And who do you live there with?
Lisa and I, our 9-year-old son, and a 15-year-old daughter.
What's the approximate square footage of the current home?
It wasn't on the documents that we first got, but it's somewhere estimated between 2,500 and 2,800 square feet,
And when was the home constructed?
1929.
Okay, so it's like one of those old Victorian homes on South Wayne Avenue, would you say?
Center Hall Colonial, not Victoria.
Okay. And the prior owner had gotten a variance, is that correct? Or relief from the side yard setback?
Yes, the prior owner had done an extension of the house and gotten some relief.
Okay, and that was, I've marked,
Maybe I've got a fairly...
you have to use.
No, you have to use we have a.
Oh, I have to use
You
it?
have
Yes,
to use
because
it.
you're on television,
Okay.
so they won't hear you. We might hear you, but they won't. And then
Okay.
they'll come out of the room back there and say, you need to put the microphone on.
Okay.
So, thank you.
So Bruce, we've attached the prior zoning relief, which was, I guess, a combination special exception variance for the setback that will show here. At the time, back in, let's get marked as A4, it was relief granted in 1995, and prior to the grant of relief, the setback was 12 feet, and it went to 10 feet, correct?
It's my understanding.
Okay, and again, I'm showing you a plan from the zoning file for that relief, and it just basically carried the line of the building to the rear.
That's correct.
Now, your proposal is for what? What are you going to do?
The house currently does not have a mudroom. We wanted to be able to put a mudroom on the house.
And is it single-story?
The house is 3-story. The extension, the addition would just be single-story.
Okay, and I've marked what's been marked as A6, and you can look right here on the plan. And the black portion is the current home, correct?
That's correct.
And again, as I mentioned, it's almost a classic pie-shaped style design, your lot. Is that right?
Correct.
And your home actually is in the rear portion of that pie shape and actually non-conforming on both side yards, even before the prior addition.
Correct.
And it looks like you even have a non-conforming garage here. Again, it was built in 1929, right?
Correct.
The crosshatch portion is the portion of the relief that you're asking for?
Again, correct.
And that addition at its closest point is 7 feet from the property line?
That's correct.
And again, it's just extending back that current line of the property. It's extending it back in a straight line.
That's right. The mudroom would need to be on that side of the house where the driveway side is.
How large is the mudroom? Or why don't you explain where the mudroom would be located and the configuration of the home?
Just to the side of the house, you can see a small drawing with through lines there. Those would be steps in. The mudroom would actually go right there closest to the driveway. That is where the existing kitchen is, so we would just be sliding the kitchen back, and that's what's represented in the crosshairs.
Mr. Kino, when you had the previous variance grant, how far did that take you into that? Do you know that?
Yes, it took us into 10 feet. You'll see the plan there.
So what I'm
Charlie.
saying is, when you extended that line to increase the nonconformity, was that a line, the original house line, or was that after the variance that was granted back in 95?
Yeah, in A5 shows in 95, the original house line was 12 feet, which was non-conforming. The requirement is 15 feet. And then extended it back to 10 feet, again, just following the line of the home. You see there where it says 12 on A5, Charlie?
So the cumulative effect of the existing variance and the requested variance is to bring the house 5 feet into that yard to within 10 feet of the property line?
It would bring it 5 feet to within 7 feet. The old variance went to 10 feet.
Okay.
So what we're requesting is an additional 3 feet. Now, of course, it's not the entire 3 feet. Again, because of the diagonal, the closest point is 3 feet, although most of it, because of the diagonal and the extension of the home is
How
less
big
than
is that triangle? What's the square footage of that triangle?
Okay, let's
So A5
do
is
some
part of...
geometry here.
The A5 plan was attached to the A4 variance, correct?
Correct.
All right,
Correct.
fair enough, I'm sorry.
Both sides? Both sides? No, just one side, right?
So that's the existing.
Are we looking for both sides, Nick?
Correct.
Both sides? You're increasing on both sides?
No.
No, just the one side, just the crosshatched area.
But there's two triangles. They're putting in the stairway that'll encroach into the required yard.
That's
No,
already.
no, that stairwell is not existing.
That stairway's not there.
That stairwell you are correct.
So there's an encroachment that's going to take place there and then one at the corner.
Well, it would be 13 feet, which even under the old house was 12 feet from the property line. So this would be 13 feet from the property line. So even under the old,
But I mean, it's still,
Yeah, I
I
think
understand
we
what you're
probably-
saying. It doesn't encroach more than the corner of the house used to as it originally was. But it will be a new encroachment
I
into the
agree.
required side
It
yard.
would be a new encroachment. That, if, I guess steps we still would need, even though it's just steps, I guess we still would need.
The structure is
some-
attached to the principal
Exactly.
house, so it's part of
Yeah.
the principal house.
Yeah. And if you look at it, just doing the diagonal, it's a very small area, the extension.
These to scale, or did you draw them? These to scale, who drew?
That's scale. Well, I think Mr. Trachtenberg probably threw
I drew the crosshatch.
the crosshatch. But the crosshatch is 10 feet, and it's 3 feet 30, 15 feet is the total,
That's both
15
triangles?
square feet.
That triangle
not-
15 square feet?
This triangle here, Noah, see which one I'm
It's got
referring
it.
to? This here
Yes.
is 15 square feet.
And how big is the other one?
One half.
Well, the other one,
Times the
again,
base, right? Area triangle?
I mean, roughly.
yeah, as far as, again, this is encroachment, we're probably talking, it looks like it's
One half, the height down the base.
3 feet by 6, 18, 9 square feet.
See, you're looking at, see, look, here it is. Yeah, that's it, yeah, it's a triangle.
Yeah, it's a real small triangle right here.
It's that triangle that's over top of the flagstone walk, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Correct.
So and you're saying that's 15 square feet, that
15
triangle?
square feet. Well, let me see, I'll try it again.
You know how to do the area of triangle?
Yeah. Is that really good? Is that
I could use my high school daughter here right now.
I think it's one half the height down the base, right?
This is his first meeting, so he's
3
gonna give him
feet
the
by
time.
10 feet, so that's 30,
30 times-
and divided by
Divided by
2
two.
is
Right.
15.
Right.
That's correct.
It's 15 square feet. That's diminished then, really. But he's already, yeah. See, the problem is, you're adding de minimis on top of de minimis.
I understand.
It's actually an irregular quadrilateral that you're going to, it's not a triangle.
not a
because-
triangle.
As was
Oh,
just
is it?
pointed out to
This
me.
one, I mean, I think
If you
now-
go from the building envelope,
Now, if we were talking about.
we're not talking about a non-conforming structure here, Nick, so we're not talking about not increasing the non-conformity. We're talking about the entire area outside of the building line. The approved building envelope will now be an irregular quadrilateral.
Right, but that's, but remember, we already had an existing nonconformity on it also.
But not for that area, not for this area.
Not- But there was,
This is adding on to a non-conforming structure, and to add on a non-conforming structure, you have to do it in conformity with current zoning.
Yeah,
The
whatever was
non-conf-
granted in 1995 is variance relief, and this is variance relief. It is not part of a prior non-conformity.
Right.
So those two have to be added together as the total quantity.
So the area of the new encroachment and
Although-
required side yard is a four-sided figure, not a triangle.
Yeah.
part of the 95 relief was special exception, because it didn't increase the nonconformity.
No, but the
There
part
was
that
a
was
very
out-
small portion
Yeah.
that was a variance request.
But there
from
was
the
a piece that
95.
was part of the variance request as well. I mean, whatever was approved by variance is not part of the
Yeah, I'm not
nonconformity.
saying that we have any right to build on, add on to a variance without getting relief from this board of another variance.
Yeah.
I would agree. I'm not trying to add on a special exception on top of the variance. I realize that we need a variance.
Right.
And
You know, I would argue that it's still de minimis, but,
I
yes, we
guess
would
my
need a
concern
variance.
with you can, if you start adding together de minimis variances, you can pretty soon get to the property line itself. At some point, I think you have to, in terms of evaluating this relief.
Well, I have another
take into
concern
account
too,
the prior-
because even if we were talking about an accessory structure here, which we're not, we're adding on to the principal building, even an accessory structure in this area that doesn't have to comply with the normal setback for the side yard can't come closer than 10 feet to the side yard. And now you're going to take the principal residence and move it to within 7 feet of the side yard. And that's an issue that didn't come up before because you only went within to 10 feet.
10 feet.
But now you're going to 7 feet. Well, you couldn't even build a freestanding shed or garage or put up a play set that close to your side yard under the current zone.
Well, an accessory structure requires 10 feet.
Right. And you're going to take the principal residence and move it to within 7 feet.
Now, let me just go a little bit further, too. Where the addition is being located, you can tell the board what is across from the addition and how far the other homes are from it.
Sure, if, So we've spoken with the neighbors here, and obviously the hardship here is on the driveway side, which is where a mudroom would go. There's nowhere, we couldn't put the mudroom somewhere else, so we need to be on that side, obviously the appropriate side to be able to put it. And reality is it works out well from the perspective of this structure right here is a detached garage. The home is actually over here. We've spoken with the neighbors here, and they've had no issue. Over here, the neighbor's house is all the way up here. They've actually subdivided this lot, are building another home over here, and our understanding is going to be a garage over here as well. So we're acting in a corner of the property here, where in essence it's garages already. So it's not like we're going to be building in a structure that's going to be impeding, and people are going to be looking out their kitchen window or living room window and staring at this.
And you can see at A9 shows where that garage we're referring to previously is located, and showing there's really no structure, home located near it. And just to give you a flavor, that's A7, which is the front of the home. And then A8's the rear of the home where the addition would go. It would go on that left side on A8 is where the addition would go. Then again, A9 kind of shows the property line on
But
where
yeah,
it
if you
would
keep this, so this structure right here, this detached garage is what we're looking at right here.
So you're going to 7 feet from the side property line. How many square feet are in that four-sided quadrilateral?
So you're talking about from this line?
Now, if you go from that line, though, Peter, I would argue that certainly would be entitled to go, the old one was 12 feet, and this line is 15 feet. The original house was 12 feet from the property line. It was built in 1929. It was non-conforming. So, yes, that would be the area that's outside, that area right here that I'm tracing is outside the 15 feet, but as I mentioned, 12 feet, previously it was 12 feet, which is, as you can see, a little bit up. So we're only talking about this portion of it.
It's 80 square feet, Nick.
Yeah. Extended the nonconformity.
80 square feet.
Is it 80?
Yeah. No, on the,
80 on the four-sided figure.
yes,
and
on
then,
the trapezoid? On the trapezoid.
and then we have that little, triangle on the side. But that still stays,
Although,
it's still further away than 10 feet from the sideline,
Right.
so it's not as much of a problem. But it is an encroachment we'd have to deal with, but it's not as much of a problem as going to 7
so
feet.
the trapezoid there was 80, but remember, a portion of that was already an existing nonconformity.
No, that's
No, no.
the entire nonconformity you're asking for. That's the variance. That's that trapezoid at the bottom. If you if you add the two,
Right here?
at the bottom, trapezoid at the bottom. Yes, that's it. Yep, that four-sided figure, yep.
Now, remember, that's measured from the property line, though. That's measured
I'm
from...
only measuring how many square feet that is. How much,
Yes, yeah.
you're putting, you want to add 80 square feet.
But that's
Into-
from, correct, from the property,
From the building envelope,
from the building envelope.
that's the measurement. That's right, and that's what you're asking for. You're asking to
Right.
be able to build something where our code doesn't allow it to be built.
Correct.
Yes.
But recall also that there was an existing nonconformity on
That-
this house.
Yeah, but you.
That did
but
not
that's-
affect this, does not affect this.
Well,
Affect the
Because you did the nonconformity when you got the last one.
No, it was existing. There was last time it was, the existing was 12 feet, and remember, 15 is required.
But that's irrelevant because there is a provision of the code talking about expanding a non-conforming
Right.
building, as you well know, and what it
Right.
requires is that you comply with the current zoning with regard to the expansion.
I think what Mr. Cornelia may be saying is that the quadrilateral isn't measured from the building line. It's measured from 2 feet, because that was, it would be from 2 feet to the, I guess, east of, north of the building line, because that was the area that was given by variance, that little 2-foot sliver. I think it's a quadrilateral. I just don't think it's quite as wide as going from the building line, because the nonconformity would give you presumably the ability to run it up a little bit more. But what it doesn't do, the nonconformity does not allow extensions into the yard, which were covered by the 1995 variance, because the variance is not susceptible of expansion. It certainly doesn't cover the new relief, which is being requested tonight. And the area for which relief is requested tonight includes square footage for going from 10 feet to 7 feet, but also it includes square footage going from 12 feet to 10 feet north of that, or south of that line, because it's, that's the quantum of the thing. I mean, the area that was granted relief in 1995 was a very small triangle, and in terms of square feet, I think the new relief has got to be at least twice, if not more, the square footage, and as well as having the additional intrusion. And I look at the intrusion as, in terms of intrusion into the yard, just in terms of distance, as a variance to permit a 5-foot intrusion into an available 12-foot yard. And the question for the board is whether that kind of an intrusion is de minimis.
Yeah, I think he had before his 30 square feet that we figured.
That was,
In 95 was 30 square feet.
but that was all of that by variance, or some of it was by special exception and some was
Some
by
of that
variance?
95 was by special exception. Some of it was by variance, some of it, because as I said, the house was 12 feet and the requirement was 15 feet. And so they went 12 feet, then they went 2 more feet in addition to that. So technically, they were
I don't know. Well, that's-
intruding 5 feet, although only 2 feet of that
Do they have a
extended
picture
beyond
now?
the special exception, the non-conforming.
Which actually you didn't need, because it's a non-conforming building, not a non-conforming use, but
Yeah, non-conforming building, yeah, sure.
I realized that they used to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Nick,
I mean, my concern is it's the combination of two things. Number one, I don't know that needing a mudroom would support a variance as a hardship. Having raised 3 children in the house I still live in, and never had a mudroom. And if there was a hardship, I don't know that I'm comfortable with taking the principal residence to within 7 feet of a property line, when there are maybe other alternatives that might not be as desirable, but that could work without requiring this relief.
Why do you need to come that far in? Couldn't you move the addition over to the south? So it doesn't square off the house?
The back of the house, Pete.
So you don't square off the back of the house?
So the back of the house here, the windows, if we were to move it further south, those are the windows to the family room. So that is the family room there.
Well, just move don't move the wall on the right that's near the family room, move the wall on the left in, so it doesn't square the house.
I'm not sure.
Offset from the current back of the house.
I understand I believe I understand what you're saying. I will say that we had multiple architects understanding that this is a requirement of a variance. And again, whether or not the board feels that this is de minimis or not, I'm not suggesting it is or is not. But because of the difficulty in the shape of the lot, and that would actually be pushing the kitchen back, so that would be reducing the size of the kitchen and making it a very irregular shape for the kitchen.
You're projecting the new room from the back of the house, is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You're projecting the new room from the back of the house?
The mudroom
It's coming out from the back of the
would be
house?
right where the stairs would be.
They're going to put it in the side.
On the side there, closer to the driveway.
So what's in this extension?
So the mudroom would be going where the kitchen is today, so we'd just be sliding
Popping
the
the
kitchen
kitchen back.
backwards. That's exactly right.
Which would reduce the amount that you're looking for a variance for.
That's why we're asking for the variance.
can you reduce the width of the mudroom? Instead of 10 feet, make it 7 feet. So you can,
When you say width, I'm sorry, you're talking from the north-south, or you're talking?
north-south.
In other words, moving the line
towards-
away from the property line,
Yes.
from the north.
Which is, I believe, what Mr. Craig had just suggested, and again, in the conversations with the architects, the mudroom actually would be up in the center of the black here, if you will, up in the middle, and then that would make the kitchen very irregularly shaped, and again, multiple architects looked at it, and
I'm talking about moving towards the building.
Well, it could be the mudroom back there smaller and leave the kitchen where it is. I mean, how big does a mudroom have to be?
well, the challenge that well, it's not that we need an enormous mudroom, but the challenge that we have is the practicality of being able to do a mudroom is being able to do it off the garage, so that again, you're taking groceries, you get kids are coming in as opposed to going all the way around.
Excuse me, A7, that's the side of the house it's going to be on, correct?
That's the front, A7.
A-
is the
A7.
front. A8 is the,
No, A7.
A7, so in essence...
It's the side of the
if you're-
house where
if
it's
you're
gonna be
look-
on,
if you're
right?
looking at, yeah, if you're looking at the basketball hoop,
Yep,
where the double set of windows are, which is right through the center of the basketball hoop,
yep,
in essence, that's where the doors would go.
yep. What's that window in front?
That's the dining room. So the mudroom would separate the dining room and the
Okay,
and the
and how about the
kitchen.
windows in the front of there, in the front of the house? That's the dining room?
That is the
Also?
dining room as well.
Why can't you slide that mudroom up into the area that's not in that triangle where the steps are? Right, and then come in that way, and then take a little bit out the back, but not so much.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Well, in other words, you got the mudroom north of the, towards the back, right? Covering the two windows through the basketball hoop.
It basically is just to the back of the dining room.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that if you slide it forward and get more of it into the building envelope, okay? And then if you want to make your kitchen, close in that back porch, all that area in that back porch, and expand your kitchen into that, okay? And not encroach so deep into the side yard that you're after, and just slide the mudroom forward. You're going to lose one window, but you're going to get your mudroom. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the dining room right there, which does not have the capacity to be able to, it's not a big dining room to begin with. I mean, the house is not, again, we're 25 to 2,800 square feet. It's not an enormous house. It's not small, but it's not an
Right.
enormous house. The rooms are not, it's an older home, does not have giant rooms.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're going to build a mudroom within the building envelope. So you're really not going to encroach into the dining room.
Of course.
He's not affixing, he's not building here.
Yeah, well, see, I thought if you, yeah, I understand, but I understand it's steps, but why, if it's steps, and you need the variance for the steps anyhow, so why not just make it the room?
we need special exception on the steps.
So if you slide this up and go into this area here with your mudroom. Well, you're gonna build.
I build an outward structure here.
Yeah, in the envelope. You could build in an envelope. Because here's the building line. So, you build in this envelope, you might lose, a little bit of this window, these windows you have over here, but then to expand your kitchen, use this space. You get all that to make your kitchen bigger.
Yeah, I'll tell you then, speaking with the architects, first of all, from, I guess, an aesthetic perspective, the diagonal aspect of the mudroom, I guess what you're saying is make that a triangle here?
Yeah, yeah. Just to try and stay in the envelope.
Yeah. But perhaps he might be.
Well, I don't want to intrude too much into their architectural planning,
Okay.
but I think they'll find a way. If we do what we think we need to do, they'll
Okay.
find a way to live with it.
Okay.
And the
Well, that's
architect
what
will
I'm
get
trying-
creative.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I'm sure their architect is capable of getting creative and solving the problem within the parameters.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, okay. All right, Nick.
Yes, please. Okay.
The problem is it's hard to see with the drawings exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, if I can, is it okay if I could work off of this picture? It's easier. So you'd enter the house here.
You
This
have to
would-
do it on
this
your
would-
drawing so the people from home can see what we're
Okay.
talking about.
I'm sorry.
Please, thank you.
Of course. Please.
Okay, a minute.
Yes.
the sign. But in one sense, that will show the public as viewing it, that we are helping them to stay within the rules. Okay, so we can.
It's not a de minimis. You
It is
can't go
not.
2 steps and call each step de minimis.
No,
They add up
because it's
to.
already done.
Yeah, it's 12 feet to 7. That's, too much. It's not a de minimis variance. You have to aggregate them. So it's dimensional, frankly. I don't see the hardship.
Yeah. You know, this is all luxury. Luxury item. You don't need all this.
I mean,
One thing we were talking about perhaps is shrinking the depth of the proposed addition, which would
as
again,
Mr. Monti, as I believe you were just suggesting.
which again would shrink the non-conform, or it would bring it at least to 8 feet, I guess, if you,
Make it 7 feet.
We're looking for, it's at 7 feet right now.
Instead of 10, now it is 10 feet.
No, it's 7. It's 7 feet.
He's talking about the width
He
of
did
the
7.
addition.
You're at the wrong one. You're looking at the wrong one.
He's looking at the north-south dimension of the addition. He's saying shrink that.
No, here, this one.
Oh, the width.
Along the north-south, the north-south
Width.
rear of the house, yeah. But we'd need to see it, relayed out in order to give it approval.
you would lose.
I mean, I think that,
3 or 4 feet. That would
you know,
bring
if they're going to
3 or
make changes, we could, it would be nice to see them on better plans.
Oh, we'd need to see the plans.
Really,
Otherwise, they
Why
could
don't
they
you
could take it to
continue
that
this,
10-foot line and
get
take it
some
all the way
plans so
back
we,
of the
the
property.
problem we have is really deciphering these plans. It's, it makes it more difficult, So,
It is too much darkened, you should show the front, back and all in that.
And also show the dimensions of the,
Well,
of
the problem is the
mudroom.
intrusion. That's the problem is the intrusion.
Yes.
Not the plans
No, no.
themselves. It's
Right.
I think there's also an issue that you got to 10 feet of or your predecessors in title got to 10 feet of the property line, which is as close as you could get an accessory structure. And now you seek to go beyond that, and I've sensed some concern about that.
It's not beyond the pale of reason if you came up with a design that violated the side yard requirements but didn't go closer than 10 feet, that the board might be more inclined to grant it as an insignificant matter. But we'd have to see every
But I guess my question is, it's at 10 feet today, and so any ability to bring the house straight back, continuing the line of the house, then you're saying would not be inclined by the board.
No, not
If
to
I'm-
bring it
if I'm
back.
understanding
There's
you.
obvious-
If you want to
there's
extend that
obvious
line,
resistance.
that's right, because if you extend it a little further, it'll be 6 feet from the property line, 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet. Eventually, it'll hit the property line. The point is there's a limit beyond which we're not inclined to go.
And I do think,
And granting a
At
variance.
7 feet, you're there. We're not going to.
I think at 10 feet, you're there.
Yeah.
I think in terms of evaluating the quantum of relief, you have to add the relief your predecessors got in 1995. So the package that the board is being asked to approve is going from 12 feet from the yard to 7 feet, from 12 feet from the property line to 7 feet from the property line, which is what the variance relief granted in 1995 added to what you're asking today would achieve, and that's like 40% of the yard, available yard, even giving you the benefit of the prior nonconformity. That's for me anyway hard to see as de minimis.
I don't think it necessarily means you can't come in from the 10-foot mark. That, I'm just saying it, not necessarily. I'm not speaking for the board, but I think you've got to keep it awfully close.
Nick,
Okay.
would you like to continue?
Yes, would request to continue.
You had something to say? Did you want to say something? No, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Please, your name, address, and please be sworn in.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And state your name for the record.
My name is Gail Blauer. I own the properties at 225 and 227 Lansdowne Avenue. It's the property that they were pointing to in the rear by the detached garage. Couple of statements. There is not going to be a garage opposite what they're doing, which they had said there was. that's not true. I am only here for one reason. I don't care about their development at all. I'm pro-development, as you know, because I'm doing my own. I'm only here because I wanted to observe the same standard of care when it came to side yard setback variances. I'm in the same neighborhood. You denied mine for two reasons. You said it was a hardship of my own making, and in doing so, you would make the neighborhood look like Drexel Hill, and then withdrew that statement. And then sent a letter saying that it was a hardship of my own making, and it would lead to overcrowding. And I'm just here to observe that you apply the same standard of care for any other house that's in our neighborhood. That's all.
When did you come in front of us?
It's only less than a year ago, not 8 months ago.
It was for a subdivision, basically. She was looking to construct another home, I believe.
Yeah, but it was, yeah. But
This was
that's- I asked
the
for
existing
variance
porch,
into a
take the
side
porch
yard.
off. Remember that one?
It was the,
You did a great job removing that porch, by
thank
the
you,
way.
you can't even tell the difference. Yeah, thank you.
I would request a continuance till next month. I'll give the board the necessary extensions for both decision and for hearing the matter as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue, is that all right with everyone? Okay, thank you. We're gonna skip to Appeal 2870. Applicant Christina Marie, Inc., property located at 419 Chestnut Lane, Wayne, Pennsylvania, zoned R2 residential. Applicant seeks permission to construction of a detached garage on the existing concrete slab where the previous garage was located. The garage is 8 feet from the side property line. The zoning code requires a garage to be located 10 feet from side property line. Applicant requested variance from section 280.22C of the code or a special exception pursuant to section 280.101B of the code. In the alternative, applicant contends that the relief is permitted as a right.
I'm Ben Sparango, the owner.
I'm sorry, your name
Ben Sparango.
and spell that?
S-P-A-R-A-N-G-O.
No, I didn't. You'll raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. You promise to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Nick, are you on this?
I am.
Oh, you're not on the application. I'm surprised. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're not mentioned in your application. Or I would have read it with so much more relish.
Well,
It's got your
you know,
fingerprints
they-
all over it, though, for the record.
You know, they used to put the attorney in the application that was in the publication at one time, but they don't do
And there's
that
no
anymore.
folder.
Huh?
You've been there with no folder. How do we know it's you?
It's a housekeeping matter. I don't have a deed.
Really?
But we
You
do
have a
have the
deed?
classic list of
Yeah,
exhibits.
right.
in the
No, I
unit
get,
form.
there's no folder there?
No folder.
I know.
There's a printout.
We got a deed. Who
Yeah.
said we didn't have a deed?
Oh,
No, we have a printout of, from
I have
the,
Do I have the right one?
okay, good.
I
Makes it
marked
real-
it as A2A, John.
Okay,
I kind of know, yeah, I know the areas, but I don't know that stuff.
okay.
That's just,
Yeah. You wouldn't get
I was
that
gonna say,
today.
didn't you want to go to county?
yeah, that's what happened.
You have a deed?
Cohen's just moved.
Ben, where do you live?
125 Kenilworth Road in Villanova.
And what's your relationship to the owner of the property, Christina Marie, Inc.?
I own the company, Christina Marie.
Sounds like wife's name, daughter's name,
No, just another development.
mother's name? No? Okay.
Phone, please.
And when you purchased it in July of 2011?
That's correct.
And you're a builder by trade?
I am.
Have you built in Radnor before?
I have.
How many homes do you think you built in Radnor?
I can't hear.
Okay. I asked him, he's a builder by trade, and he said yes. And have you built homes in Radnor before? His response was yes. And approximately how many homes do you think?
Around 20.
And your purpose, you're intending to renovate and resell this home, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And I've marked as A2A the actual deed to the premises, and as you mentioned, you were the president. And actually, the renovation of the home, were you adding any square feet?
No.
Right? Basically, what you were doing, you renovated the home and you constructed a garage, correct?
That is correct.
And you had to go to Harb, this is in the Harb area, you had to go to Harb, you got Harb approval for it.
We did.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been, and the proposal was for a two-car garage.
That is correct.
And again, I'll just show the plot plan prepared by Robert Wager. This was the plot plan that was submitted to Harb and submitted to the Township.
That's
Nick,
correct.
Mick, can you move a little bit? It's, please, thank you.
And that's been marked as A3. There you go. Now, of course, the one issue here is the garage is listed as 8 feet from the property line. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And the proposed garage, a crosshatch portion, that was not built, correct? That was an addition to the garage?
That is correct. It was proposed, but we never built it.
And this garage was built on existing slab?
The existing slab that was there.
Okay. Do you know when the old garage was?
I don't know when the old garage was torn down.
When was the house built?
1890.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4. And actually, why don't you tell the board, obviously you built a portion of the garage and the township told you to stop because you're 8 feet, not 10 feet from the property line.
Correct. We started to frame the garage on a Friday morning and finished it on Saturday, and we're putting the roof on Monday, and I got a phone call from Ray Daly saying, hey, you got to stop. The garage now has to meet new setback requirements and be 10 feet from the side yards.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A5. And you stopped, actually.
That is correct.
When marked as A5, and can just tell the board what that represents, that the concrete slab that you built the garage on?
That's the existing concrete, yes.
And you built it exactly on the slab?
Yes.
Did not increase any impervious coverage?
No impervious increase.
Show you A6. And is that the side property line we're talking about?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's the neighbor to the right there, correct?
The neighbor to the left from the,
right,
if you're looking at it from the front.
And actually, in this area of North Wayne, almost every garage
is pretty much on
the property line.
The property line.
Showing you A7, if you could just, is that the
neighbor's garage?
And it almost on the property line or close
Right.
to the property line?
Right, and that's the neighbor to the right.
'Cause I was going to ask you, is this your picture? You using old wood?
No, that's not him. Yeah. Okay. A8. Again.
Neighbor to the right, yes.
A9.
Neighbor across the street.
Again, showing it almost close to the property line. A10.
And that's 2 to the right, neighbor.
Right now, you actually have spoken to the one neighbor that's affected on that property line.
That is correct.
And you presented him with an estimate from Shriner, with an estimate as to plantings that would screen his property, and you're willing to do
Yes.
that and perform
Yes.
that? Okay. And, I have to mark this one. This would be A11. And again, as I'm handing it out, just tell the board what A11 represents.
It's a price to plant 3 9 to 10 foot arborvitaes on the left side of the garage to help buffer it from my neighbor to the left.
And also the second page here.
And that's a sketch of the plantings.
Nick, is there any plan there to show that these garages are at the boundary line?
Can you describe, or Ben, if you know where the property lines are on these garages?
Most of the driveways on Chestnut are pretty much right on the property lines as you drive in. But no, we have no boundaries there. Like, there's no stakes there showing it. We have a fence on.
So probably they have taken care of that 10 feet setback.
No, they haven't.
How do
Those
we-
are existing.
They're all non-conforming.
They're non-conforming.
All the homes there were built pre-zoning in Radnor
But
Township.
this looks a new garage.
No.
It's not that.
No, that's not a new garage.
Probably was renovated.
I think it was stables at one time.
I would probably think it was stables also.
Yeah, and the reason the question, I think the board's aware, in North Wayne and even in the South Wayne area, a lot of the garages, because the buildings predated zoning, were built within a couple feet of the property line. And that's the only reason for these pictures, saying it's consistent with the rest of the neighborhood where it's located, and actually it's probably further than most of the garages for the rest of the neighborhood.
The slab, had there been a garage that burned down recently, or how long has that slab existed without a
I have
building
no
on it?
idea how long that slab's been there.
I mean, just building
So
on
you're
top.
not claiming the right to build as of right a non-conforming structure?
It appeared, it certainly was more than 6 months or a year.
I mean, it would have to be within a year, and it would have to have been destroyed by casualty. You can't put that in the record,
No.
so that's not what we're talking about.
No, we're
We're
not.
talking about a variance or no variance, basically. Did you have a building permit to build this thing?
We went to Harb and got approval at Harb to build it.
Did you get a building permit?
I don't know if it was on that application. No, there is no building permit for the garage.
If you wanted to get a building permit, you would have had to show where you're going to build this, right? On the
Well, they
plan.
knew where I was going to build it.
No, Harb did. I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah, but
I'm not trying to be sour or anything. I mean, Harb is a different board than the people.
Sure.
They're concerned with different
entity.
things than the township and the zoning board are.
Yeah, do you know if this A3 was submitted to the township?
Yes, it was,
With the building permit or with?
with the Harb application.
Okay, all right.
The tree thing, are you going to talk about that?
This would be a condition. Certainly be
I mean,
willing.
why did that come up? Did the neighbor
Oh, the
complain
neighbor,
about
yes.
that?
Yes,
I-
yes.
Here,
I-
actually, or saw him here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben, when he realized he had to go for relief, went and spoke to the neighbor, and I think this was
Yeah.
kind of what they talked about.
And I agreed to warrant the trees as long as I own the property, too.
And Nick, what evidence do you have to put on with regard to the existence of a non-self-caused hardship?
Well, one, you have a situation where Park did approve it, but again, we're not saying that, I'm not saying the township. And the other
to the
thing,
point.
You have a slab here, you have an existing slab that a garage at one time existed on. You have a neighborhood that every garage is located closer than 10 feet from the
That's not
property line.
hardship, that's conditions in the neighborhood. I understand, but I mean, is there any evidence, is there a hardship and any evidence of a hardship?
Well, the hardship would be, as I said, you would be increasing the nonconformity. The property was built in the 1800s sometime. So we're not really.
You're saying we'd be increasing?
We would be increasing impervious coverage, I'm sorry, if we had to move the garage.
Not if you took out the old slab
That's not feasible, obviously.
or added on to it.
Yeah, but you'd have to increase it because you have to change the drive. If you move the garage over 2 feet, you'd have to increase the.
Is the property at its impervious coverage limit?
I have no idea.
We don't believe it is. I'm
Doesn't
just
look-
looking at the plan.
doesn't look to be
Yeah,
based
just looking
upon
at
the plan.
it doesn't
Also
appear.
on the plan, you have proposed garage and the hatches. Is that an addition? or-
No, that is not, he did not.
That
build
was an original proposal, but we did not build it that way.
And we're not asking to build it that way.
So the crosshatches on
A3, that's out. We're not requesting the crosshatch.
oh,
Does the slab go under that part, or are you going to put a new slab on there?
The crosshatch.
If you had built that addition,
We would have to do a whole new,
so you could put a whole new slab to the right of the garage and build it over where it's supposed to be too, by a couple feet?
yes, you could.
Yes, okay. Well, I don't see a hardship other than the self-caused hardship that he built without a building permit, without filing for it, and put it in the wrong place. I mean, moving a slab over a couple feet, if he could have done it in the back, he could do it on the side. I don't see there's any hardship that justifies the granting of relief. He's perfectly capable of building the garage where it belongs.
But again, you have an area that already has a lot of flooding problems. We would have to increase impervious coverage. Even if we complied, even though we would comply with the impervious coverage requirement, we would have to increase the impervious coverage here.
By,
Why would you have to increase?
By
Because we would have to move the drive and we have to move the,
by maybe 20 or 30 or 40 square feet.
no, I think you'd have to move the drive probably more than that.
I understand your argument. Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure I understand the argument. If you moved everything over 2 feet, why would that increase the impervious coverage?
You would still, it would increase it by 2 feet. If it's just 2 feet, it would increase it 2 feet the driveway would have to be moved over 2 feet. All right, and then for that extension, there would be some increase. It's about 90 feet. It's about, it would be about 180.
Isn't there going to be some turnaround area for cars anyway? The driveway's not going to be like this.
The driveway's staying.
How do you get out of the garage? Back all the way onto the street?
That's how I back out of my garage.
But they have the room to do otherwise, Nick. They have the room to do otherwise. I can't believe they're going to leave it like that.
There's a lot more concrete there than you see. You
Than
have to
shows.
actually- Yeah.
So the point is, you really don't have to put new paving in, just to increase the
you
slab.
would, because you still have to go over to the right. You would still have to be able to
You would
enter
still
into
have
the
to be able
garage.
to back out. I mean, really, if you look at the existing paving according to the survey, it's basically just the width of the garage. It's narrower than the garage, and it becomes as much as the width of the garage. There's really no back out area. I mean, as I said, I've been back out of my garage that way for 30 years, 35 years, 25.
Getting onto a public thoroughfare.
Sure. Some of us have older homes. I don't know. No, that's common. I tell you right now, on my street, it's very common to back. Everyone backs onto their street.
What did you say the hardship was again?
We would have to increase impervious coverage. We have an existing slab that was already here. Now, granted, the garage was removed at some point. We don't know when the garage was moved. Granted, it was moved, but there was a garage there on that existing slab. We are building a garage that's no bigger than that old garage that was built on that existing slab.
Any other questions?
Do we have a photograph of the area with the driveway and, you don't see that driveway?
Did you get that last email?
Because it's only in the paper.
Well, the survey shows where the driveway is. It's a survey drawn by an engineer on A3. There's not a photograph of it, but it shows the existence of the drive.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Google map, but it doesn't show.
This one's a Google map.
That's the house,
Oh,
but
if
it
you
doesn't
see-
show.
Actually, there's Google, other than show the drive.
Yeah,
Where's this?
that's just the walkway going up. It doesn't show the driveway because the trees are covering it.
So, in the Google map, do you have the slab shown there?
It doesn't show it on the Google map.
Why, you have some trees in that area, or?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the neighbor to the left. This is 419, and this is the neighbor to the right, but you can't really see the driveway.
There's a large maple tree in this area right here, existing maple.
Well, no one wants to bother that maple. We want to go the other way.
No, right, yeah, exactly. I was just pointing out because we're talking about vegetation covering this in the Google map.
Yeah.
But as I said, the survey shows the existing paving, existing drive, and it shows it very narrow. It's only
10.
Well, Mr. Spranger has already said that that does not accurately show the paving.
feet.
He already says there's a lot more paving.
The turnaround.
There's a lot more
That's correct.
paving than appears on that plan.
On the like, if you look at the front of this garage, there's more turnaround space when you're backing out. Like, it's the width of the whole garage as opposed to the width of just the garage door opening.
Right, which it shows on the plan.
Right.
It extends it. You see it there. The driveway itself is 10 feet, and the width of the garage, where it's 15 feet.
20.
No, it's not a good plan.
Any other questions? No?
No questions. I would move that,
Wait, we need to see if anybody in the audience wants to talk. Don't move yet.
I don't know if he wants to come up.
Anyone in the neighborhood, anyone in the audience have anything to say? Come on, please.
And sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, my name is Jerry Holtz. I live at 118 Kenilworth Road, and I swear to tell the truth. I came here in support of Mr. Sparango. I'm a neighbor of his, and I've been able to watch what he's done on this project. I go over there, I'm kind of intrigued with it, especially when you have over 100-year-old house. And I just find it somewhat interesting because I'm a real estate developer. I'm constantly before boards like this, planning commissions, and throughout the Delaware Valley. And I would think if he went to Harb with the idea of moving this garage over, okay, and maybe building a bigger garage and pushing it back and doing different things, that Harb would be like, wait a second, it was like that for 120 years or whatever many years. Why don't you just keep it the way it is? I think proportionally with respect to the way the house was designed and all those things, I think, you know, to me, I think you're much better off keeping this garage where it is. That's my opinion of it.
Are you a neighbor of this property, sir?
No, I'm not. I'm a neighbor of the township. But I'm just, like I said, I've seen this property and I've witnessed it, and I just think it's
You're
important.
testifying as an expert?
Well, like I said, I'm in many boards. I'm before many boards in the Delaware Valley. So I just wanted to express my opinion of it. Okay?
Did you say you were a neighbor? Do you want to say something?
If you raise your right hand, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name for the record?
Chris Stavrakis.
Mr. Straka, could you put either hold one or move that one closer to you, whichever one you prefer. Thank you, sir.
Chris Stavrakos.
And spell it.
Stavrakos. I am the neighbor to the left as you face the house.
The short
and
side?
so, the side that the garage is encroaching on the, over the setback. And in fact, I did call the township about it because I've been living there for 5 years and there was never a garage there. There was a driveway, an existing pad, that's correct. But I inquired about that and was given several different versions in the few times that I called about it. And then now the outcome is this, which I wasn't aware of until Mr. Sparango and I spoke about it. Actually, Mr. Daly told me that he was going to stop work and then he would have to go for a variance. I'm not opposed to putting the garage this close and leaving it where it is. I did want the site of the garage because, as he described, the garage went up in 24, 36 hours, very quickly. We didn't know anything about it. And from our deck and from our kitchen, which actually all the windows in our living space face that neighbor because the other side of our house is Eagle. It was a very large structure with a very big square tablet of shingle. So Mr. Sparango and I talked about it, and he's come up with a remediation plan, which is the tree screening, and I think that's fine. And frankly, it's true. All the garages in the area around this neighborhood have pads that are non-conforming. Mine does. We don't use it as an active garage. We use it as storage, but we do have a non-conforming garage. So it's not out of character with the neighborhood.
The slab is there.
The slab was there. There was no building on the slab. Okay. For 2006, so 5 years.
And you're okay with the screening that he's proposed?
Yeah, as long as that is the screening and as long as it serves the purpose, I'm okay with that.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Anyone else have anything to add? Any questions, anybody from the board? Nick?
Just if you can make the exhibits part of the record, please.
Okay. Now, Noah, we'll let you do this one.
I move that the request for variance be denied on the grounds that there is no hardship and there was no permit issued, so there's no rights by estoppel, and there's an easy solution to solve the problem and make it fully conform, which is why our code says you have to rebuild within a year and has to be a casualty. Otherwise, anybody who has a ruins on his property or a slab from an existing property, and they're all over the township, could come in and ask to be rebuilding every time, no matter where it is and what it is. So I move that we deny the application.
Yeah, but no, that slab was there and the Harp also looked at it, and they said it's nice to have it built in that same place.
Well, we don't know that they
one
can even
year-
consider that issue, Corey.
That 1 year limit is not applicable here.
But we have no testimony from Harb to say they even considered that issue. They're probably looking at architectural, conformity with the house and the neighborhood.
Okay.
But they're not looking at things like that. Harb cares about historic, perspective.
Yeah.
They don't. They probably don't even know where the required line is. It's not their issue.
Pete?
I disagree. I would grant the variance based on the fact that the slab was there, the requirement that it have been burned or destroyed in a year's time and rebuilt. Is that what they?
We don't know. It's been, we've had testimony, it's been
I
not
would-
there for at least 5 years.
I would say that, given the situation, I would vote to approve the appeal.
Jim?
I agree with Peter.
Cora?
I also support Peter's description, mainly because the slab was there and there is no historic reason not to have it, because neighbors are happy with that.
I'm going to agree with Peter as well, but I do believe that Noah's point about exactly what the ordinance does in fact dictate to us. I think what kind of plays into here in the hardship is the fact that by moving everything, I think it would disrupt the historic nature of this specific property. It would also have to be, it would increase the driveway, which would probably propose another problem. And I will also add that the architectural plan, the landscape design screening be entered into the record, that has to be included.
That'd be a
in the
condition.
completion. Yes.
And
Is that
just to
okay,
be.
Jim? Would I add that?
Yes.
Yes.
Before we proceed, the
Yeah,
applicant on the record said that he would maintain it during his ownership of that property.
Yep.
Is that part of it as well?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
I mean, he cannot sell it.
He can.
Well, since he testified that he's building the property, fixing it up to sell it, maybe there should be some kind of requirement in the deed that it be maintained in perpetuity.
How can that be? How can you?
I would. That's getting a little detailed on something.
Would we make it?
You could say
We
it has
wouldn't
to
make
be
it personal to Mr. Sparango. We'd make it run with the land in some respects.
I mean, would you be willing to have it run with the land?
My only concern is on the resale, when you do things like that. it tends
Yeah,
to
but
hurt
that's
value.
easier than taking the garage down and moving it, Nick.
Well, the one thing we can do, the one thing we can
And if
do-
all the trees die through the next winter,
What's the point?
all the trees die through the
What's
next
point of-
winter.
What is the point of the maintenance anyway? I mean,
Yeah,
water the things?
I'm sorry?
Make sure that if they die, you gotta replace them.
Well, I think
I
you go with that. I mean, 8 years from now, the tree dies?
You replace it.
No. Yeah, that should be a condition.
That's just difficult, because now you're binding a future owner to something like that. It's very difficult on a resale.
But the
when you do
relief
that.
is running with the land, though. I mean, right?
I know Shriner, I'm sure, guarantees his trees for a year or whatever, provided they're up.
It says plants not guaranteed.
Okay, great.
It's right there in the proposal.
Most guys guarantee for a year. I don't.
Unfortunately, it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm
He'll-
sorry.
he'll-
I
He'll
didn't-
guarantee
I
to
didn't look at
replace
it. I
them. I've
just
worked
assumed
with
it
them.
would.
He'll guarantee to replace them. I've worked with them.
Well,
Yeah.
it would be my proposal that it run with the land. That's. I won't speak for anybody else.
I kind of concur.
So that would be the condition that I would.
That it has to be maintained.
Yeah,
The
it
screen has to be installed and maintained. Is that acceptable to the applicant?
It's just that we're not having any control over it with the new owner. That's our concern. I mean, that's.
But the new owner
We're
gets.
binding someone that we don't know to a condition.
Nick,
I'm
even
sure that's the intent, but.
Well, I mean,
again,
it's.
I just.
Do I have to write an opinion like a denial now because you're not accepting the condition?
even
I'm going to Ben. I don't know.
I don't know how you force the next owner to maintain.
He.
It's in part of
The
the
neighbor complains to town, and he
Part
gets
of-
an enforcement notice from
And
Ray
that's
Daly.
kind of what happens is
Once
that,
the neighbor to the left leaves,
and the next neighbor may not know.
right.
So then you don't
Or the
have
right
worry
to
about it.
enforce
You gotta
it.
go read this-
The
you gotta
right
read
to
the street file
enforce
when
it
you
can
move in.
attach to the property next door, and if on notice they don't fix it, he can do it and send them a bill. I mean, there's a lot of ways to
Well,
do it.
actually, I wouldn't get, I think the township, the conditions that the board approves ought to be enforceable by the township.
Yep.
I think it's the township that enforces that. We've had requests actually to get involved in, enforcing or having private owners, do it essentially or cross easement agreements at the township's expense for enforcement people, and I'm a little worried about that.
I think we need to
This doesn't
provide
seem
that
like it's a
if they,
big
if
deal
they
to
don't
me.
maintain it, and they refuse to upon notice from the township, that the variance expires, and they have to remove the building.
Whether it be enforcement, which is, I don't think that's part of the enforcement. The enforcement is $1,000 a day fine.
Yeah,
Is what the
I don't
enforcement
think we
is.
have to
So
say that
obviously
the
you're
building
going
comes
to
down.
do it. I don't think
There'll
it's
be-
a matter of removing the building. I think the enforcement procedure in the NPC is the fine.
I think
Yeah.
the fine.
And you know what, I think as soon as they get the letter, it's gonna get fixed. I don't think this is a really big issue. It would not stop me, I don't think.
So is that something you write in the deed?
No.
No. It
It
doesn't
would be
go
in the
deed.
order. It'd be a condition of your getting the relief, that you maintain it.
That's it.
Thanks.
Okay? Are you gonna accept the condition? Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Charlie, accept it,
Yes, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and then we'll do the last one. That's okay? Thank you. Hey, Norma. Which appeal we do? Appeal 2869. Applicant 100 West Partners, property located at 354 West Lancaster Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania, and zoned C2 General Commercial and R5 Residential. Applicant seeks approval to convert existing office space to 12 apartment units. The following relief is requested: a determination that the proposed apartments are permitted as a matter of right under I Code 280-53-1C, 1B, permitting dwellings in the C2 district, or II Code 280-101B1, permitting a non-conforming building being used for a conforming use to be altered if the alteration does not cause an increase in the non-conforming condition. Alternatively, applicant seeks a special exception under Code 280-101A1 to change the non-conforming office use to a non-conforming apartment use in those portions same general character as other uses permitted in the C2 district, and or 3, to the extent required, any other measurements of release necessary to allow the proposed apartments, including variances from Code 280-51C2 district use regulations, Code 280-52 C2 district dimensional requirements, Code 280-53-1C2 mixed use dimensional requirements, Code 280-34 R5 district use regulations, and Code 280-35 R5 district dimensional requirements, and Code 280-103 off-street parking. Mr. Bozeman.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm George Brosman, representing the applicant. With me is Joe Birch, a representative of 100 West Partners. He'll be testifying tonight, and Steve Bagis is seated in the back. He's also a principal of the applicant. This property, the board may be familiar with, is at 350 West Lancaster Avenue.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Can we number all these things so when you refer to them, it'll be easier for the board and the people at home to follow, if we could, please?
Sure.
Okay, suppose we call the application. All right, John?
Mm-hmm.
A1.
Yep.
Can I interrupt you?
You sure can.
I have pre-marked a lot of exhibits to go faster, and I did pre-mark the application as A1.
Okay.
And then
I don't have them here, so if you,
Yeah,
if you have
I do
them-
not have a pre-marked
Yeah.
application.
So if you have them, let us know, and we'll mark them to your.
Yeah, I have.
to your
I have
index.
them.
The application is A1.
Yes. And then through Joe Birch, I was going to go through and have him identify the site plan, which will be A2.
Hold on a second.
Site, is that SP1? Do you have
Yes.
Exhibit B?
Yes.
Is that A2?
I'm sorry, hold on a second. We're going too fast. I'm losing you.
I'm going to make it easy.
Bottom corner, John.
I have a
SP1.
list here I'll hand up.
Oh, here's A2. Okay. Yeah, this is marked. Okay. Yes, very helpful. Very helpful.
This is a list that we were going to go through with the testimony.
Okay, that's A2.
So SP1 is going to be A2.
Okay. Yeah, I have exhibits as letters. I assume exhibit, the photos would be A3A.
Yeah, we have copies of everything we're going to hand up
Okay, so you're going to
that I've
hand
marked.
with proper exhibits.
Right.
So we should basically rely on those and, pay no attention to.
Yeah, I didn't want to burden the board with you having to mark everything, so I have
No,
them all
that's fine.
marked. And,
I have one question, though. Apparently, in the comprehensive plan, and you cite in your addendum the chapter and verse of that, this is designated as Wayne Business District, although it's not Wayne Business Overlay per the zoning code. And, I just like to, I think we ought to confirm, is this indeed in the Wayne Business District, but not within the Wayne Business Overlay District?
I don't know how clear that is, Mr. Ryan. Let me,
Want me to try again? Or?
I can address that. This property is split zoned. You'll hear testimony on that it's C2 General Commercial District. In the front from Lancaster Avenue going back where the back part, about the back 80 feet, is zoned R5 Residence District. So we looked in the C2 General Commercial District, and in the beginning at 28050, it says that the C2 General Commercial District provides for appropriate development and special requirements of the township's main or general business districts. So this is considered to be a main or a general business district. And then when you turn to 28053-1, which according to my code book was added later by ordinance 2004-36 in 2004, they supplemented the C2 general commercial regulations to provide for town center residential and mixed-use development. So it seems to me what they were trying to do was to encourage the kind of thing that we're trying to do here, have some mixed use in the commercial areas. Because previously, other than allowing by right hotels, motels, or inns, and clubs, fraternity house, or lodges, they seem to be the only residential uses that were permitted in the commercial zone. So this town center residential mixed use concept was added. And when you read through the provisions, it doesn't use the most precise terms. It talks about the business district as defined in the 2003 comprehensive plan in subsection A in the purpose. And then the provision that might lend some support to our application C, town center mixed use development. It talks about town center mixed use development. Town center mixed-use development shall provide for a mix of commercial and residential uses within buildings in the business district. So there it's using a different term, the business district. It's not referring again to the comprehensive plan, but in the beginning, as I said, at 28050, it talked about this as being a business district.
It's actually in the, if you look at the beginning in 280-53.1A, it says the business capital B, district capital D as defined in the 2003 plan. So
right, and there it does, but not in C. But I took a look at the comprehensive plan, and I made some copies if the board was interested.
yes.
I wasn't going to mark it, but we certainly can. Let me hand that out.
Because it's, if you are within the business district, then you, presumably are taking advantage of 280-53.1 C1, which allows dwelling units above the Mr. Brosman, the question that I think we're going to have as we get through this is, how do you know that this is in the business district but not in the business, maybe it's in this document but not in the Wayne Business Overlay?
Well, I know for certain that it is not in the Wayne Business Overlay District.
Okay.
I have the zoning map. You could take notice of that. I could lay it out if you want. That ends up basically at Bloomingdale Avenue, which is to the east of the property.
Okay.
The Wayne Business Overlay District, as far as I can tell, is sort of a misnomer. Typically, an overlay district lays on top of another zoning district, and there's an option to proceed either under the overlay or under the what would be the underlying zone. But as far as I can tell, when they adopted the Wayne Business Overlay District, it's really not an overlay. The C2 or whatever was under there is gone. There's no option when you go in WBOD to do any other zoning district. It's all WBOD. So basically, the lands to the west along Lancaster Avenue are still zoned C2, and in the comprehensive plan document, the best that we have is, and I'll mark this as, I was going to go through A12 on my list, so this would have to become A13. I just took the sort of the introductory parts of the comp plan for identification, and then I really just included Chapter 4, the business section. And really all we have on this is the map at page 4-5, which you can see, this is a black and white copy, but the Wayne Business District, as it's called in here, is I think what became the Wayne Business Overlay District. And then there's another, the other business districts are shown on this page, or they're called here commercial areas, and there's one immediately to the west of the Wayne Business Overlay District, just called Lancaster Avenue. That's what we're in. So we're not in the Wayne Business Overlay District. We're in, I believe, a business district that is identified by the comprehensive plan, and a district that was trying to encourage other
You're in
than...
the Lancaster Avenue district.
Yes.
It's not the Wayne Business District. And you're saying the Wayne Business District as shown here would conform to the Wayne Business Overlay that was subsequently enacted?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Are there different colors on the thing between the Lancaster Avenue District and the Wayne Business District?
I believe what you could take notice of, the official copy, which is in color, I believe they're all in red, but you can see the line of demarcation between the Wayne Business District and the Lancaster Avenue Business District. I'll lay in a table here. On this, it shows a white line.
Yeah.
I believe is generally the area of Bloomingdale Avenue. I could lay out the zoning map if the board is interested. This is the zoning map which you can take notice of. Like this. You can see the similar shapes. The WBOD is in purple. You can see the similar shapes to what's shown on the comprehensive plan. It looks identical to me. And then this strip, the Lancaster Avenue District, extends to the west, and the C2 area that we're in is in, I guess you call that color pink, along here. So I think that's the zoning scheme that we have here.
I'm not seeing it. Can I come down and just take a look at it?
Sure, or I could come up and point it out.
George, where did you get the name Lancaster Avenue District?
It's on the, if you look on page 4-5 of the Exhibit 13, you'll see what they've outlined Wayne commercial districts in Radnor, one of which is the Wayne Business District, which pretty much coincides with the overlay, although not exactly, but Bloomingdale Avenue does seem to be the demarcation. And what they've done on this comprehensive plan is all of these districts, commercial districts, are colored in red. So I think you have to look at the labels to find the lines of demarcation between individual districts. Now, for example, Garrett Hill is very easy. It's nowhere near the Wayne Business District. If that's colored red, that's the Garrett Hill District. And as I read this, I think that the Wayne Business District, which stops at Bloomingdale and which does the applicant concedes there in the Lancaster Avenue, is a different district. And unless I can see something more, I don't think the Wayne Business District applies in this case. I think it's a little unfortunate that the code had drafting with Wayne Business District and Wayne Business Overlay, but I mean, unless I'm missing something, it seems to me you're in a different district from the Wayne Business District.
There's something else in the plan that seems to throw light on that. If you look to page 4-14, about an inch and a half up from the bottom of the text, they talk about improve the identity of Wayne as a shopping destination by creating a strong visual symbol at the intersection of Lancaster and Wayne. Second point, strengthening the district gateways along Lancaster Avenue at Bloomingdale and Luella Court. So they're saying that basically that the Wayne Business District starts at Luella Court on the east and starts at Bloomingdale on on the west.
And this is further west than Bloomingdale.
This is
so
further
it's
west than
on the other
Bloomingdale,
side of
yeah.
the...
This is like near Primo's and
Exactly.
those things, yeah. It's just east of Primo's.
It's next
Because
to
without
Primo.
the Wayne Business District,
This was an old electronics operation years ago. It was an electronics store many years ago.
So what we're saying, Mr. Ryan, you're right. We're not in the Wayne Business Overlay District.
Well, the question is whether you're in the Wayne Business
According to
District.
this, you're not in the Wayne Business District.
Well, I don't think
You're in the Lancaster
the problem with the code is, since they put in the Wayne Business Overlay District, which is separate and distinct from C2, because this provision is now, this is in C2. So if you read it that it can only be for Wayne Business Overlay District, this provision, 28053-1, is totally meaningless. It applies to nothing. So I'm saying it should apply to something. And even though the language isn't artful, when you get down to C, where I am, it's talking about a business district. They're not talking about Wayne. But even if they were talking about Wayne, this is Wayne. Where would this apply? It would apply nowhere. And when you look at the preamble 28050 of the C2, they do call it a general business district. So
Well, George, that may be why they used the term overlay. Maybe they did intend for them to be coexisting.
but when you go to the Wayne Business Overlay District, which is applicable only to the purple area on the zoning map, that's a totally different zone now. And the people in the Wayne Business Overlay District, it would be my reading, cannot use this provision that I'm talking about because this is in C2. And when you read WBOD, there's no provision in there to go back to C2. It says if you're in WBOD, you have to follow the WBOD rules. And the WBOD rules, by the way, provide for this kind of thing anyway, kind of in a different way. They're providing for mixed use. So our thought is, and this is just one theory we had, that they wanted to encourage in C2 not just hotels and clubs and fraternities and lodges, but allow for some smaller apartments, generally over retail, which is really what we're doing here. We have the testimony is going to be from the Bages people that these are very small apartments. They've done this kind of thing before. They're basically efficiency apartments. They'll be occupied by one person, and it's just the kind of thing that they were looking to do in these kind of districts. We'll have testimony that the parking will be ample and all of that. So this was a unique case because of the split zoning. What category of the ordinance did it fall under? So I looked at this and said, this is one possibility, because what we have is, that Joe will testify about is, this property on Exhibit A2, we have the split zoning line that runs through the building. This is the building. So what we have in the R5 area is commercial offices and commercial parking in an R5 district. That's non-conforming. What we're seeking to do is come in and eliminate the non-conformity and turn it back to residential. So it'll be residential use there, and the residential use will extend into the commercial zone. So it's sort of an interesting case that you're usually not faced with. Usually you're seeing people saying, we want to do something more intrusive in the residential zone. What we're doing is saying we're curing a problem in the residential zone, but because of the way the zoning line is, we have this very long and narrow building that extends back. We have this space that we're going to utilize. The apartments are allowed back here in the residence, but they have to extend in the commercial zone. So you either say that the apartments would be allowed in the commercial zone under something like this, or I applied in the alternative under the non-conforming provisions of the code. I thought the simplest one is to change a non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. That was some of my alternate.
Yeah, but the office use is conforming in C2, isn't it?
It's conforming in C2, but
because
not
by incorporation of C1.
Right, but not in R5. So you have to look, it's my view, if you don't accept the town center argument, which I think is a viable argument, that the building as a whole is a mixed-use building. It's a non-conforming use. Parts of it are conforming, parts of it are not. So we're changing a non-conforming, basically office space to a non-conforming apartment space.
Here's the concern that I have, and correct me if I'm wrong. it seems to me you're starting with a conforming commercial office use in the C2 portion, and it's non-conforming as to the R5. If you're outside, if you were inside this Wayne Business District as shown on the plan, then you would be changing from a conforming use to another conforming use, i.e. the apartments, and you'd have to, square with the dimensional requirements that apply there. But I personally think you're outside the Wayne Business District as shown on the comprehensive plan, and that you're basically in C2 and in R5. So in C2, you're taking a conforming, for the C2 portion of the building that would be devoted to apartments, you're taking a conforming use and asking to use a prohibited use, the apartments, which would require a use variance. And then as to the portion of the office use that is located in R5, you are taking a non-conforming use and translating it to a conforming use, because apartments are permitted in R5. So the special exception mechanism doesn't help you there, because you're going from non-conforming to conforming. The trouble, another issue I see, though, is that to have dwelling units in the R5, the apartments would have to be bigger, and you also have to have more lot area. I think you have to have something over 5,000 feet for each dwelling unit, and I believe your lot is only around 15,000. And if I'm reading your map correctly, and actually I read it wrong. Mr. Cutler read it what I think is more correctly. If you look at the A2 sheet, which shows the proposed apartments, and if you look at the location of the columns in the column to the it says in the middle of at the bottom of the thing, apartment 104, 414 square feet, there's a column there. I believe that translates into the same line as the R5 C2 boundary, which means that you've got several apartments, each of which needs to conform to the lot area, have the requisite lot area to support it, and each of it must conform to the dimensional requirements, which I believe is a minimum of 600 square feet, and none of these apartments comply with that. Am I correct on the placement of the line?
I think you're pretty close on the placement of the line. Just to step back, back to this, the whole Wayne Business District thing. Again, my point on this is we don't say we're in the Wayne Business Overlay District. We're not.
No.
But what we do say is this provision, 28053-1, has to have some meaning. And if you say that it only applies in the Wayne Business Overlay District, it's meaningless. Because it can't apply in the Wayne Business Overlay District because it's part of C2. And that Wayne Business Overlay District was rezoned, and it is not C2 anymore. So this, if you don't allow it in another place, this whole provision, it's in the ordinance, but it doesn't mean anything.
I think there's a way to explain that. I mean, let me just put that on the table. I think when the plan was done, Wayne Business Overlay District didn't exist. The plan defined business district, and this isn't in that business district. Later on, a couple years later, they promulgated the Wayne Business Overlay District, and then they passed the zoning provisions for that district. But at the time this comprehensive plan was done, and the definition Wayne Business District was invented, there was no Wayne Business Overlay District. So at the time this code section that you're talking about for the mixed use and the C2, it did make sense because there was no Wayne Business Overlay District.
I think you're probably right about that, Mr. Cutler, and I thought about that. So say that's correct. When they adopted the Wayne Business Overlay District, which maybe 2007 sounds about right, they left this in here. They could have taken it out. It's left in there. We have to assume it was left in there for a reason, or even if it wasn't left in there for a reason, we have a C2 property. This is in C2. And it is identified as a business district. So if the commissioners, when they were adopting the WBOD, wanted to take it out, I assume they would have taken it out, and this general preamble language is, again, talking about business districts. On the non-conforming...
Would it really make any difference, George? I mean, if you go under this section where it talked about the town center mixed-use development, some of the requirements are more lenient than they would be otherwise in a multi-use scenario. But you still don't meet them with this property. This property is still too small, and there are a lot of other ways. The parking issue, there's a lot of things in way that have nothing to do with the non-conforming structure itself. There are a lot of ways in which this property does not qualify to be a mixed-use property.
Well,
regardless of how you proceed.
Just as one example, let's assume you are in for the sake of argument, in the Wayne Business District, and that the apartments are allowed on the C2 side of the line, and assume that they comply with those requirements. You're still taking a non-conforming office use in R5 and trying to get a special exception to convert it to another non-conforming use, but the apartments are allowed. The apartments are a permitted use, but if you have the apartments in R5, you have to comply with the various dimensional requirements, and the special exception mechanism is not intended to allow you to trump the dimensional requirements of R5, particularly when it doesn't apply because the use is permitted in R5. It is permitted in R5.
I mean, we have to kind of peel this back. It's a simple application, but it's complicated because of the zoning line, essentially. What I'm saying is this town center regulations that I've talked about, if you accept that, which I think it's valid, that can deal with the use. We've got several issues here. We've got the use and we've got the dimensional criteria. The one question is can you have apartments in the commercial zone? I say there's 3 ways to do that. One, under these town center regulations, it recognizes that they wanted this type of use in the commercial zones. That's number 1. Number 2, I've talked about the change of the non-conforming use. I'm going to address your comment with that in a minute. And third, I suppose, a variance. With regard to the question about the non-conforming use, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Ryan. The apartments would be, from use point of view, would be conforming back here in the residence district, but non-conforming in the commercial, and you want to split it up. We don't have the luxury of splitting up this building. This building is a long, narrow building. It's one building that happens to be split by a zoning line, and we have office space in all of the building in the back that's in the area split by the zoning line. So although you may want to split it by the line, as a practical matter, it's one non-conforming use. The parking is non-conforming as a matter of use, and the office is non-conforming. So we have to work with that whole space. We can't just we can't take this artificial zoning line and say, okay, that's going to be one building, this is going to be another building. So we're looking at it. I think the only fair way to look at it is a non-conforming use, and if you think the apartments aren't permitted from a use point of view under the town center rules, it's really changing one non-conforming use for the other.
But the office is a conforming use on the C2 side of the line. The office uses are allowed.
But the office boundaries don't, when you go into this building, the walls of the offices aren't on the line. It's all one office. So
No, I understand that, but the putting...
it's all one non-conforming use.
But my understanding is you plan to put apartments, most of them in the C2 area, but a good number of them in the R5 area. Based on your plans, and we probably need to draw the line on one of the exhibits as to where the zoning boundary is. For those in the those apartments on the C2 side of the line, you're taking a because I don't think you're in the Wayne Business District, so I think in that situation you're taking a conforming use for those apartments and trying to put in a use that's not permitted. It's not a transfer of one conforming use to another. It's a transfer of a conforming use to a use that's not authorized. And then as to the apartments located on the R5 side of the line, you're taking a non-conforming use, because the office is non-conforming as to that piece, and transferring them to a conforming use, which takes you outside the special exception, because there's got to be one non-conforming use to another. And the effect of the application, candidly, is to put many more apartments in there than this lot would support, particularly just on the R5 apartments. I mean, you can't get, I think you can get 2 apartments, and you've got 2 floors of apartments, and I'm not sure where the basement apartment is. All the apartments are undersized for what's required in R5, and there's too many of them.
Yeah, with regard to, I just have to keep stressing, this is one building, one large building essentially. We can't divide the office up. It's a non-conforming use. I don't think you're disqualified from the special exception because you're actually making some of it conforming. Some of it will remain non-conforming. With regard to the dimensional items, with parking, for instance, our testimony is going to show as a practical matter that we have enough parking. There's going to be a lot of testimony on that. But as a legal matter, we're greatly reducing the existing parking nonconformity by doing this, and we'll have testimony on that. And the board has approved that in several other situations. With regard to the density, I can say this. In the commercial zone, I don't think there's a density requirement. So you want to say, let's apply the density requirements of R5. Well, if you did that, as you said, maybe we could get 2 apartments in the rest of this whole building. I mean, those apartments wouldn't be
I think the density, if you just took the R5 apartments, just the R5 apartments, I don't think you make, and assume the other apartments don't have a density apartment. For the ones on the R5 side of the line, I don't think you have enough lot area, and they're not big enough.
They're very close to the size. The size is, I think, 600.
For one of them.
592 and
one of them, but that's the biggest.
The only ones you have is those 2. The only 2 that are 5.
And these others are split.
By not by much. 90% of them's in the R.
I think the line is a little back.
The line looks to be about 5 feet from the column line toward the back of the property.
So we've got 2 apartments that are essentially 600, and we've got half of other apartments that aren't in the R5. So there's actually an advantage that we're going to talk about. It's what the market demands, and the Bages people will talk about this. This is the kind of apartment that is suitable for this area.
It's the advantage, George. George, socially, what is the advantage? Socially, people like to have a family. With one-person apartments are few in the township.
Mr. Brosman, you have an Exhibit A2 actually has 2 plans. There's A2 and then SP1, which I assume is part of A2, right? There's a plan attached. I assume that's part of A2 because that's how it was labeled.
Yeah.
Well, A2 is our site plan, and on my list,
Is
A10 is going to be the floor plan.
Okay, so this is could you possibly show me where you think the line is on the floor plan? Yeah, and that this is A2. Site plan is A2.
Maybe we should swear in Joe Birch, because he probably knows this better than I do, where the zoning line is.
I think it might be a very good idea.
I think, off the record, I think it's, Noah, I think thinks it's here. We think it's pretty close to that.
That's what I thought it was somewhere in here.
We're thinking about here, maybe about half of the apartment.
So you're basically, you have one, on each floor, you have one full apartment and portions of 2 others on, that are on the R5 side of the line.
Right.
So
This is 1 floor, this is another floor, and
this is clearly on the other side of the line.
Yeah,
Now, that's, below grade, but that's,
and these are just about 600.
yeah, I think it would be a good idea to swear in your witness and give us an idea where that line.
But in order to understand the testimony, are you contending that you are a town center mixed-use development or not? Because if so, we need to have testimony on all these requirements for a town center
Well,
mixed use.
I'm using town center mixed use, just on the use question, to say, can we have apartments in the commercial zone?
Or you could above the first floor. You're showing them on 3 floors, basement, first, and second. I mean, if you were, that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. Where are we heading? Are we trying to say that it is one of those, or that it's something else?
I'm trying to, I'm talking about it from the use point of view. I'm showing you 2 or 3 ways that the use would be allowed, the apartments and the commercial. And then we have dimensional issues to deal with, whether we say they're the dimensional issues of that requirement or dimensional issues of R5. We may need some relief from some of the dimensional requirements if you would apply them to the apartments. With regard to setbacks and parking and all of that, we're not increasing any nonconformities. In fact, with parking, we're significantly decreasing the nonconformity.
I mean, am I wrong? Just so we're all on the same page, C2 allows an apartment, but that's like for the store owner or a guard, right? I think that's all that's allowed in C2. R5 allows apartments with its own provisions,
And the Wayne business-
and then the Wayne mixed use
building in
would
Wayne
allow
Business
it,
District would allow it, but
only above the first floor.
yeah, I think
So
we're-
I'm not sure if we don't know what to take testimony on, if we don't know where they're
Well,
shooting.
Basically, based on Exhibit A13, which is the plan, I don't think this is in the Wayne Business District. I think that this is outside of that. It's in the Lancaster Commercial District. For purposes of coming in within the Wayne Business District, it might as well be the Garrett Hill District as opposed to the adjoining one. So I see this as a straight C2 R5 issue.
Yeah, and even if it were, they wouldn't be allowed to have any apartments except on the second floor.
Yeah, but I see it as a C.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that hits their target. I think
Well,
that's why we're
can I-
trying to figure out where you want to go with this, so we know how to work with it.
Because in the commercial district, as far as I can tell, there's no density limits, and there's no minimum apartment size. Those are in the R5 district. So as we said, we've got basically 2 apartments in the R5, and they're just about 600 square feet. The rest of the apartments are in the commercial, and I don't see a density requirement. With regard to this town center argument, again, I think I've been clear about it, but we don't contend we're in the Wayne Business District. But what we do contend is the Wayne Business District is a separate zone, and these things have to mean something. And so these things to mean something say you should have apartments in commercial. With regard to your question, Mr. Cutler, about the floors, the testimony is going to be from Joe that Lancaster Avenue is at a higher grade and this slopes down. So when you come into your old electronics store, which is now a different type of store, you're coming in at grade at Lancaster Avenue. And when you come around the back, you're much lower, and you're coming in basically at a basement level, and there are 2 floors above. So the apartments, except for one apartment, which is basically being put down there to satisfy ADA requirements to keep it at grade, all of these apartments are on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. So they meet that
So you're
requirement.
calling the basement a first floor for your purposes?
I'm not calling it anything. I'm just saying that.
Well, but we need to under the code, George. That's what I'm saying. If that's your argument, that that's the first floor, that's one thing. But if it's not, then it affects the application of the code.
Yeah, I mean.
Because the code uses the words first floor, so.
Yeah, I think the intent is that they wanted apartments on the upper floors. So whatever you call the lower basement or first floor, they are on the upper floors. The apartments, except the one, and the one is being put there for ADA purposes, down on the basement at grade. We can go around and round on this. Maybe I should get the witness sworn so you can understand, why they're doing this and what exactly it is.
I'm having a hard time. Justifying in my mind's eye that you want to put 12 apartments, okay? And if you take any of the regulations, you don't hit any of them at any point. I mean, the 600 feet or the 5,400 per dwelling, or the first floor or the upper floors.
The width of the lot at the building line, I mean,
I
no
mean,
matter
there's nothing that's working here.
Yeah, well,
I mean, you're asking for,
we haven't even put our testimony
well,
on yet.
I understand that. I'm having a hard time figuring how you're going to put all these buckets of water in one bucket.
Yeah, the testimony is going to be, if we can put it on, and
Absolutely, you can put it on.
They can say it much more eloquently than I, but basically, we have this building. It's a unique building. It's, I don't know if you've seen it. We have photographs of it. It's a bit of a white elephant. It's got this office space that's very undesirable. So there are cases that say when you have an existing building, that the building itself can be the hardship. So what are we going to do with this building? We're going to put apartments in, and the testimony is going to be about what the market is for this kind of the size of the apartments, and why they size these apartments. It actually is done for a reason. What they want to do is make sure these are occupied by one person, and they have other situations like this in the area, and they have found that they're occupied by one person because they need to get a viable use out of the space they have of the building. So they need to fill it up with the apartments, and then they want to have them small enough so you don't have more than one person, so that there's one space for every apartment back there. They're going to testify that they met with all the surrounding property owners. We don't have any opposition. The testimony is going to be that the use will be less intense, that the parking will be satisfied. So that's kind of where we're going with it. We think it's a good thing for the community, good thing for the township. It's going to convert this white elephant into these apartments. They're going to make a lot of investment in it, and it's not going to have a detrimental impact. It's going to be less intensive than keeping this old office space, which you could fill that office space up with somebody that jams a lot of people in there and have a real parking problem. This is getting into all the mixed-use kind of things that Wayne and these things, the town center provisions are looking for, that you have shared parking, because when the retail is closed, that's when apartment demand for parking is at its peak. So it's just all to the good to convert the space into apartments, given this lot that we have, which is small, and it has a very big building on it, basically. So that's where we're going. I think we should get Joe sworn in, and we may have to have Steve sworn in.
Fine.
I think we should swear Mr. Bages as well, just so he can affirm the testimony at the end of the day, since he's the principal.
You'll both raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. You do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the
parking
truth.
requirements here?
And state your names for the record, please.
Stephen Bages,
And spell it.
B-A-J-U-S.
And
Joseph Birch, B-U-R-C-H.
All right, I'm going to run through testimony with Joe, and then we'll call on Steve as we may need. Joe, what is your connection to the applicant, 100 West Partners?
100 West Partners is a Pennsylvania limited partnership, and I am one of the limited partners.
And does 100 West Partners own other properties in Wayne?
Through this partnership, we own 3 other properties in downtown Wayne: the Wayne Theater Building, the Bank Building, the corner of 100 West Lancaster, which is on the corner of Lancaster Avenue and South Wayne Avenue, and 121 North Wayne Avenue.
And is 100 West Partners an affiliate of S.W. Bages Limited?
Yes.
And are you employed with S.W. Bages?
Yes.
And what's your position and experience there?
Currently the vice president. I started working for the company in 1995. I started as the commercial and residential leasing agent, and currently I'm involved in almost all aspects of the real estate side of our company.
And does your company manage several properties in Radnor Township and the general area?
In addition to the properties owned by 100 West, we own the Kingsway apartment building, which is right down the street from here. And also the other kind of significant properties would be the Wayne Hotel and Radnor Hotel.
And has your firm renovated and adaptively reused a significant number of other buildings in Radnor Township as well as the general area?
Yes, we have significant experience in renovations and general adaptive reuses of properties.
And are you familiar with the property that is subject to this application?
Yes. In fact, I was involved in the purchase of it back in 1998.
And I'm going to refer the board to Exhibit A2, which is the site plan that was part of the application. Does everyone have that? I have smaller copies that I had marked as A2.
I have
Anybody
one.
like those?
Be happy to have a smaller one. This is an easier one to look at while we're going through it.
Thank you.
Joe, I've handed out Exhibit A2, and we have it on the table here. Is this a plan of the subject property?
Yes.
And referring to Exhibit A2, can you describe the property?
The property is on the south side of Lancaster Avenue with, as you look at the plan, the right-hand side here is Lancaster Avenue. The property is generally thin and long. The dimensions are approximately 66 feet by 230 feet. We are somewhat landlocked by two commercial properties. To the west side is the property that has Primo Hoagies and Monroe Muffler. To the east side, you have a collection of commercial businesses, Lauren Hair Salon, the beer distributor, the fish market, and pretty much our entrance and access is exclusively through Lancaster Avenue. We talked about the split zoning. It does have the C2 and the R5 line from the zoning map.
And that's shown on A2.
Correct, right in this general area.
And it's marked as being 150 feet back from the Lancaster Avenue right-of-way.
Correct.
Can you describe the improvements that are on the property?
The property is currently a three-story building. The front portion of it is a one-story retail building that is currently Artisano Ironworks. They do artistic home furnishings, kind of probably one-of-a-kind type of pieces. As you would drive down, the east side is really the inside of the driveway. You access an entrance that is actually is sort of the basement of the existing building, but is really the ground floor when you enter from the lower parking lot. And up above, you have 2 floors of office spaces currently.
And we had included with the application, and here again for convenience, we've marked these. I want to take you through some photographs. I'm going to hand these up to the board.
Good.
So the first sheet, this package, these are all separately marked. Exhibit A3, the 3 photographs, A, B, and C, are they photographs of the building that's on the property?
Yes.
And walk us through A, B, and C.
A, B, and C are, A is if you were a little to the east of the property, you see the front of the building, and then you can see the drive lane that is actually to the right of what is Lauren's sign there up towards Lancaster Avenue. You would drive down to reach the lower lot between that and the building, and you see what is currently the office space in the back. Picture B is just a straight-on shot of the front retail space, and then the C picture goes a little further west, and you see as much as you can before it's blocked out by the adjacent commercial building. Sorry.
So picture A3A, as you said in the back, you can kind of see the upper floors of the building, correct?
Yes.
And that's generally where the apartments would go?
Correct.
Let's turn to the next page. Walk us through these photographs and just refer to the exhibit numbers that I've marked there.
Picture A4 is the east property. That is the beer distributor, and I believe it's now a shoe store where they must have subdivided it. And to the right edge, you can see the R building there. That is the upper floors. Picture A5 is the west property. I believe the left-hand store is vacant currently. You have Primo Hoagies. And I believe the right side is part of Monroe. As you turn to A6, this is me, that's myself standing on Doyle Road taking a picture looking through the back of Monroe Muffler. And in the background, you see the upper floors of our building. And A7 is myself turning a little to the right, and you still see the edge of our building on the left-hand side and the residential building towards the back, along the back of the Monroe property, and it also goes behind our property. Picture A8 is a photo from Lantoga Road, which is looking across the parking lot of the fish store, the beer distributor, and it's looking at Lauren Hair Salon with our building in the background. And then picture A9 looks a little towards the back. That is the resident behind the fish store, the beer distributor, and their property reaches just behind our property also.
Now, moving to proposed conditions, let's move to the floor plan. And in my exhibit package, I think we call this Exhibit A10. I have smaller ones of those as well.
Yeah. We should probably mark one somewhere where the approximate line is.
Yeah, I'll ask.
Thank you.
This is A10, right?
Showing you what we've marked Exhibit A10, is this a floor plan of the building?
Yes,
And this would essentially be the proposed floor plan?
correct.
Now, can we try to the best of your ability to draw on here where the zoning line is?
You want me to draw it on or just use the?
I think
Okay.
I've heard, you want one that has you want it drawn on there, or?
I mean, just as long as it's pointed out, we can draw ourselves. I don't think we're going to be able to measure it with precision with what we have tonight.
As you look at apartment 104, pretty
Yep.
much where the 1 is where I believe the zoning line is,
Okay.
in that general area. To the right of 104 is the column, which I think Mr. Cutler pointed out. Those are the columns down below and the transfer of the beams coming up. So that's roughly where I believe it's located at.
I think it's to the left of that. If you scale what you have, it looks like it goes through the L in the closet. It goes through the L in the closet.
The closet in 104?
The closet in 104, right, the L.
No,
I think
Well, I
that's
mean, if you
too
scale,
far.
if I scale it off of what you have, I mean, if that,
I think you have to go off that pillar, that
That sounds right. If you look at it, it just doesn't make any sense off of this plan. Okay.
Guess you're trying to pick up the column on A2, I suppose, Mr. Cutler.
If you just measure off the column line with the scale, that'd be a lot easier. Just measure
Right.
off the column.
I don't think it's in the closet. I think it's around the 1.
Yeah,
I would, I apologize. I think if that's a 1/8 inch scale, a 1/8 inch scale with a 230-foot property would not fit on this size of a piece of paper. That's probably a 3/32 scale.
no, I just took the lines from I did this.
Like an average from the column to the
No,
column.
I just took,
But Charlie, the man's testifying about his
Okay.
building. I
Yeah,
think we
okay,
can take his
fine.
testimony.
go ahead.
Okay, Joe, can you, referring to Exhibit A10, Just describe the floor plan to the board. I think it seems I think they understand it, so I don't think you have to belabor it. But just walk them through the general sizes and the types of units and how many.
At the bottom of the plan, you can see where the overhang is. Of course, the parking is there. The main entrance is right off the main parking, and you'll have access to the ground floor apartment, which was designed for ADA access. You would walk up.
That's labeled as apartment 1 on
Apartment
A10.
1. On the second floor, there's a total of 5 apartments. And again, on the third floor, you have a total of 6 apartments. The apartments also will have apartment storage on the ground floor space. And also down in this common area, we would probably have some basic building functions like a bike rack and anything else that may come into play that would be kind of a building service.
And what's the general range of the size of these apartments?
414 square feet up to 592 square feet.
And how would you describe these? You have experience operating other apartments and apartment buildings in the area. Are they considered efficiencies, studio, 1 bedroom? What do you call those?
The mix in the building would have 3 one-bedroom apartments. 6 of them we've labeled as studio apartments, which is pretty much a glorified efficiency. And 3 other apartments are basic efficiency style apartments.
And what's that mean, 1 bedroom versus studio and efficiency?
The 1 bedroom has a separate bedroom with a door and a closed off area, where the efficiencies in the studios pretty much have just a large open area or a half wall to a 3/4 wall that divides it to give it a little more wall space in order to put furniture up against it, but not really a dedicated bedroom.
And how many bathrooms does each of these units have?
1.
You heard me talking before about the being designed for 1 occupant. Was that correct?
Yes, we would limit all these apartments to 1 occupant.
And why do you propose to size the units in this way?
We know there is a demand for this type of apartment. Right down the street, we have the Kingsway apartment. Just for a kind of a point of reference, I don't know if Mr. Falcone remembers, that property has 42 apartments in it, many of which we have 4 2-bedrooms. I want to say it's 24 efficiencies that come nowhere near 600 square feet. And the balance are 1-bedroom apartments. We were here a few years ago where I believe we got a variance to convert the ground floor to office use. Quickly in my head, if I added up 42 apartments at 5,000 square feet for a density figure, that would put me well over 200,000 square feet for a lot. I think we know the Kingsway building apartment is nowhere near that size. I would submit that first as evidence that this mix of properties work well together. There we have 42 apartments, another 8,000 square feet of office space, and we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 parking spaces. If you extrapolate this out to those sizes, if you take the 12 parking spaces, 12 apartments times 4, that's 48 units. I have 16 parking spaces here, that's 64. I'm on scale with that same project that has been very successful in the township, and I continually have demand for efficiency and 1-bedroom apartments at that location. So therefore, this is one reason why we thought this was a good project to do there.
Now, if this was to be approved, obviously these are floor plans that have been prepared for the zoning board. You'll have to get building permits to do this work, correct?
Correct.
So that there will be plans that ensure that all the applicable building codes are addressed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with your proposal, would there be any expansion to the building?
No. The design and the layout of the space stays within the building envelope.
And would there be any changes to the site?
No.
Moving on to the office space that is there, that is presently vacant?
As of right now, yes.
And how would you describe, or strike that, you operate other office space in the area,
Correct.
even at the Kingsway apartment that you mentioned?
Yes.
And elsewhere in Radnor Township,
Yes.
elsewhere in the general area?
Yes.
In your business, how would you describe this office space?
We would describe this as Class C office space.
And what's that generally mean?
If you look at the property, the main entrance is not visible from Lancaster Avenue. It's a walk-up to the other floors, meaning there's no elevator service to the building. And it is shy on parking for a general office use.
So Class C denotes less than a desirable in terms of offices?
It's not a high-profile location. It's pretty much someone who's looking to get out of their house or is not as focused on an image and just needs an office.
And what has been the experience with these offices with vacancy rates in the recent years?
Since we are shy on parking, we've tried to rent to low impact office tenants, trying to keep down the number of cars and the impact on the neighboring properties. However, the last few years, we've experienced a high vacancy rate. In 2008 and 9, we were probably around 57%. The one tenant who was there, he expanded in 2010, so we dipped down to 44%. But as of this December, we're up to 100% vacant.
Did you review this proposal with the neighboring property owners?
Yes.
And how did you review that proposal with them?
We sent a letter detailing a community meeting. The list that we use is the same list that goes for the zoning notice. And last Tuesday, December 6th, we had a meeting from 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
And as a result of that meeting, it's my understanding, did you agree to add some fencing in the rear of the property?
Yes. One of the participants at the meeting was Joe Lucas, who actually is the owner of the Monroe property.
The Monroe Muffler property?
Yes, to the west. There is an existing little gap in a fence that's on that side of the property.
So you're going to refer to the site plan?
Could you move that down a little bit, because they couldn't see that at home? Great, perfect, thank you.
You're now referring to the site plan, which is A2?
Correct. And you could park here, or you could park on Doyle Road, walk across the Monroe property, and access the back of this. It was at his suggestion that we put a fence up and just close off that little area. In addition, in talking to the other neighbors, we talked about putting a privacy wood fence working from the back corner of the garage on the Monroe property across the back of the property entirely and returning up to the corner of Lauren's hairstyle building.
And that's something you would be agreeable to do?
Yes. Also, while we're in the meeting, the one neighbor in the back, there was a larger tree on the back of this property. I think over the years it has grown away from the building and more over his property. He asked us to remove that. Initially we were going to trim it back severely, but after looking at it and more at the request of that neighbor, we took the tree down. So that has already been done.
Now I want to focus on the parking situation. How many parking spaces will be available on this site?
There are 16 currently, or there will be 16, yes.
And does the site plan show that there would be 12 spaces or 1 space per unit in the rear nearest to the proposed apartments?
Yes. In the lower portion here, we'll have 12 spaces. We typically issue a parking tag to the tenant, and that is the only means that they are permitted to park in that area.
And so you're understanding that the property with its mix of retail and office uses is currently non-conforming to the Radnor code parking provisions.
Yes.
And have you calculated the degree of that nonconformity?
Yes.
And I'm going to hand out to the board Exhibit A11. Is this a chart that you prepared?
Yes.
And this chart marked Exhibit A11, it has two boxes, the top box being existing use calculations, correct?
Yes.
And the bottom box being the proposed use calculations?
Yes.
And what is the existing use calculation and what is the nonconformity? What is required, and what is there, and what is the degree of the nonconformity?
Working from the C2 requirements, it's required to have 51 parking spaces for the square footage that's currently there for the office and retail space. We have 16 spaces on site, and that yields an existing non-conforming of 35 parking spaces.
And with regard to the proposed use, the proposal is that the retail use would stay the same, correct?
Yes.
And what's the impact of removing the office use and substituting it for the 12, one-occupant apartments?
The total required spaces for the site, therefore, would be 41 spaces, representing a reduction of 10 spaces from the current use.
And that's all shown on Exhibit A11, correct?
Yes.
Now I want to go away from the code requirements and talk about your experience with whether these parking spaces will be sufficient as a practical matter. We know we're reducing the need under the code, but given the size and configuration of the proposed apartments and your experience with other apartments in the area, in your opinion, will the parking spaces on the site be sufficient to meet the needs?
Yes.
And could you elaborate on that?
Sure. Recently, we renovated another mixed-use building in Bryn Mawr. The address is 1021 Lancaster Avenue. It has a ground floor retail space and had second floor office space. The property has many of the same characteristics in Bryn Mawr does as this site here. We are experiencing increasing vacancy of the office space. It's also surrounded by a fairly dense residential neighborhood also. And after much analysis and working on plans, we were able to yield 14 efficiency-style apartments. They range probably 425 square feet to just over 500, I would say 502, 505 square feet. And it worked out very well because previously we had 14 parking spaces that we assigned to the office space before. Again, in this situation, it was probably a non-conforming building. It didn't have enough parking spaces for the amount of square footage. It was probably in the range of 7,500 to 8,000 square feet, the office space on the second floor. And again, we got the 14 parking spaces. It equated to one space per unit for the yield that we got, and the project has worked out okay.
And with regard to that project, what's been your experience about the number of occupants per unit and generally the type of occupant that you've gotten to fill that kind of apartment?
The units are small, but they're very nice. The kitchen counters and the bathrooms have granite countertops. It's a faux wood floor made over in Europe. So the general finishes are very nice, and it appeals to a very professional clientele. A lot of people that work at the hospital, a lot of professional people who really just need an address to call home, but probably are working most of the time. And we were generally surprised that we pretty much leased up the property in about 3 weeks.
Joseph, where is this located?
1021 Lancaster Avenue in Bryn Mawr.
Near the hospital?
Yes. The hospital is probably a block up. It's between,
Got to be Warner Avenue.
close to there.
It's the 10 block, it's got to be Warner Avenue.
The back road to access the parking is up Floyd Terrace. I don't know if anyone knows that back area. It's a very dense residential area. There's not a lot of parking for those houses. There's another collection of row homes back there. So
that's on the north side of Lancaster Avenue,
yes,
if assuming Lancaster is running east and west.
correct.
And the nice finishes that you described there, is that what you're intending to do here?
Correct.
And to your knowledge, has there been any detrimental impacts with that conversion you did in Bryn Mawr?
No, and even talking to the tenants, most of the reactions have been fairly favorable.
This is in Lower Merion Township?
Correct.
So you're basically using a model where you essentially have one parking space per unit. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's consistent with that other project that you did.
Correct.
And is that is the one space per unit standard consistent with the more recently adopted standards in the Radnor Code, where smaller residential units are encouraged in a mixed-use building? I'm particularly referring to the Wayne Business Overlay District that we were talking to about before. I'm going to hand you just a part of that code, the parking requirements that I've marked A12. I'll hand that out to the board. You have it in your code book.
Yes, in the WBOD, apartments in mixed-use buildings, provided the units are less than 800 square feet, are only required to have one parking space per unit.
So that would be consistent, obviously, with your plan here and your experience, that is sufficient parking for this type of unit.
Yes. In addition, like I said before, where we have the 16 parking spaces on the site, what we haven't talked about a little bit is we're also leaving a mixed-use building where we had office and retail, which are not compatible with their peak parking demand times, and converting it to a mixed use of residential and retail where there can be some overlap, and we would expect the apartment tenants to use the spaces in the front in the evening also.
So that would be even extra parking that would be available as a practical matter
Yes.
during the peak times. And the just to go back on something on referring to A2, the site plan, we've talked about the R5 line, and you've talked about basically you're surrounded by commercial. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in the rear, is it my understanding you're between Doyle Road, which would be to the west, and Lantoga to the east?
Yes.
So the properties in the rear that border the subject property, does one front on Lantoga and one fronts on Doyle?
Yes.
So you only border two properties back there?
Yes.
And you'd be putting the fence up as had been requested?
Yes.
And what's the, how would you describe where the houses are located on those lots and on Lantoga and Doyle in general? And then what, given that location, what's really behind the building and the parking lot?
You can also see in the pictures, A7 or A9, I believe, behind Lancaster Avenue of the 3 commercial properties. As you said, there's 2 houses. They are single-family style, and for the most part, they're built more towards the street frontage of Lantoga and Doyle. And if you had an aerial, the site plan on A2 doesn't provide that as much with the trees back there, but as you would look out the back of the building, there's no properties there. It's really the backyards of most of them. And even as the apartments lay out, there's only 6 windows out the back of the building, and the plan calls for 2 of those to be closed up. So there'd only be 1 window per unit looking out the back over those properties.
And to that point, the photos that we went through before, Exhibit A7, this in A7, this parking, that's the parking for the Monroe Muffler Auto.
Yes.
And the building that I'm pointing to the left side of the photograph, that's your building?
Yes.
So that the yellow house that's in A7, that's right up on Doyle?
Yes.
So you can see that the house is isolated from the back of the building and the back of the apartment parking?
Yes.
And similarly, if we go to photo A9, looking at A8 first, is that a view from Lantoga looking into the Lauren Hair Salon?
Yes.
With your building in the background?
Yes.
And I see a blue minivan, which is the first car in the parking area that I'm pointing to?
It's the first one in the picture, but I don't think it's the first one on the lot.
And then down in A9, is that same blue minivan that I'm pointing to?
I believe so.
So this shows that the house that's behind your property is right up on Lantoga and not behind the building?
Yes.
Do you see any detrimental impact that would come from changing the office space that we've discussed to these proposed apartments?
No.
Would any of the, we've talked about the parking nonconformity would be reduced. Would any of the existing nonconformities with setbacks and things like that be changed or increased?
No.
And that's because you're not changing the exterior of the building or the site?
Yes.
This is all internal work?
Yes.
That's all I have at this time for Mr. Birch.
Can you help me a little bit? Can you kind of spend about 3 minutes on the hardship part of this? Why you
Sure.
need, the hardship on all these variances that you're requesting?
Yeah, let me do that. We talked in the beginning about the use issue. You can either look at that in 3 ways. Is it a permitted use because it's this mixed use? Can you view it as a changing of a non-conforming use by a special exception? So both of those would not require a hardship. If you don't agree with either one with regard to the use, I know Mr. Ryan is very familiar with the line of cases that talk about the building itself can be the hardship. We have a very small lot with a fairly big building on it that has this C-grade office space that's in there. There's been testimony that it's not been desirable. There's been a high vacancy rate, and that the building itself and the land that it's on can be the hardship in this case. So we're trying to convert it to an apartment use to relieve the hardship. And interestingly, that the whole back of the property, those apartments are permitted, and I think also important, the parking spaces in the back would be apartment parking and not commercial parking. So it's really because we have the zoning line going through the building, through the floor plan where we identified it, what do we do with this space and how do we use it? And I think this is a very reasonable way to use the space to relieve the hardship that we have. It's very suitable based on the testimony that we've had for the apartments. They have a demand for it, and there would seem to be no detrimental impact. With regard to some of the dimensional matters, we've testified that you can handle parking in two ways, I think. One, which you've done on the Suburban Publications building and some other cases that I have copies of here. You've recognized that when you can change a use, and if the property is legally nonconforming to parking, you can reduce or continue that nonconformity. Here, the chart we submitted shows a reduction in the nonconformity. 2 points on that. There's no place to put any more parking. And also, if you want to view it as a variance, we've talked about there is no place for more parking. And the use, changing these offices to apartments will reduce the demand for parking. There's been a lot of testimony that this will be sufficient. Having it mixed use with retail is more favorable than office against retail. It's a shared parking environment that don't have the same peaks. With regard to all the other dimensional requirements, there's no density requirements that I am aware of in the commercial zone for the apartments. Everything's internalized, so we're not changing anything on the site. So, yes, there are the density requirements for apartments in the R5 zone. As was said, I think by Mr. Ryan, if you tried to apply those, we'd have such large apartments here that they wouldn't be rentable, and there'd be so few, it wouldn't be a viable use of this large kind of white elephant office space. The apartments we have, it's actually advantageous to have them smaller because they're going to be limited to one occupant. There's a demand for that in the market, and that'll limit the impacts to this, not only the surrounding residences, but the surrounding business owners, who were talked to about this, and I think they were pleased with that arrangement. So that, I think, kind of sums up. It's a very simple application, just changing out changing out office for apartments, but it is somewhat challenging to figure out what legal buckets to put this in. But I think it's a good project. It's a good investment. You can see this building. It's a very unique building. I don't know of another building that looks like this on the main line.
George, before you go into argument, I have questions for your witness.
Oh, sure.
Others
I was
might
just
also-
trying
Okay, yeah, let's do that. I just wanted him to clarify the hardship part.
Right.
What he had.
He's summing up.
Yeah, I know. I
Not
didn't
done.
ask him to do that.
Okay.
And you have someone else you want to bring on, you said?
I
Well, I have
you
questions
want a
for
question?
that witness.
Okay.
I have questions for that witness.
Okay.
Mr. Birch, you said you were involved in the purchase of the property in 1998.
Correct.
And you're familiar with the way the property was situated at that time? I
Yes.
assume. Has there any major change been made to the size, dimensions of the property or the building since that time?
No.
Is there anything different? And it was retail in the front and office and the rest at that time?
Correct.
So it's all the way you bought it?
It was all occupied by one tenant, and we converted to make it multi-tenanted, putting up corridor walls.
Internal change, yeah.
Internal walls, yes.
Are you familiar with the requirements that would apply to a mixed-use town center development in the C2?
I'm not intimately familiar with them, no.
So you haven't considered whether you can comply with any of them and would comply with them? For instance, in the back, you would be required to have a buffer, a planted buffer of at least 5 feet between you and any residential uses with vegetations that are specified in here. You're not familiar with any of that, so
I'm not
sure
familiar
if
with
you're
that
familiar. Okay.
in the code, but I think we actually have that on the site now.
But you're required to plant trees of a certain height and all that, so you haven't had a chance to review that, so I want to ask you about that. Let's see. Where do you plan to have the off-street loading space?
Off-street loading for what use?
It's required for a building of this type under any of the sections that we've been talking about. You have to have at least one off-street loading space of 12 feet by 30 feet that does not interfere with the parking. So I didn't know, I don't see it on the plan, so I didn't know what your plans were.
I'd have to go back and reconsider that.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, anyone else? Peter? Jim?
I have a question. You know, the hardship, what George was saying, is it financial hardship?
No.
Then what kind of hardship?
It is probably more a practical use hardship, the building. Times are changing today. And we're also trying to be considerate of the neighborhood. We've always tried to put low-impact office tenants in there to minimize as much parking spilling over onto the other locations.
No, I heard earlier that you don't have tenants, one place is vacant now.
Yes.
My house, just in front of my house, 3 years they are still trying to sell. I don't think they are going to change to apartments, within the house, because, nobody is going to buy that place. What I am trying to say, it's the economic situation also that must have affected you.
It probably does, but following up on the project in Bryn Mawr, we started around January. We had the apartments completed around August or September. We had a model completed for July 4th, and within 3 weeks, most of the apartments had leases on them, where the rest of the property did not have even the walls completed for the rest of the apartments. Only the model was completed at that point in time. So I think there is more demand for apartments right now.
Did you present this to Planning Commission? Just to get their opinion? Because you were always talking about the planning document here. So did you ever?
Where we're working within the existing confines of the building, I don't think we need to go to the Planning Commission. I had presented this to Matt Bauman probably about 4 or 5 months ago. That's when we started figuring out exactly where the C2 and R5 line was. He subsequently left the township. I reviewed it with Ray Daly, who still is in contact with Matt, and kind of gave us the guideline that as long Matt was okay with the use, provided the apartments were all in the R5 section. And the question somewhat being, if we had to access the building through the commercial side, that's where we needed the special exception. And he's actually the one who advised me to, I guess, eventually let George know that that was the course of action to take to make the application. But for the most part, he was okay with the use in this part of the building. He relayed that on to Ray Daly, who gave me that information also and said pretty much go to zoning and get approval for that through those means.
Did you ever think about going to the commissioners to change the whole area to mixed-use zoning or commercial, R5 zoning?
No.
Is that one of the options you can think about it?
I guess it would be something to consider, but at this juncture, we thought this was the best way to proceed.
Another witness, Mr. President.
No, I just had a couple follow-ups for Joe.
I want to say that if you look at this site, it's clear that we have a physical hardship, to answer your question. It's a very narrow property, and it's very long and narrow, and it's disproportionate to the lack of frontage that we have. So it is, in my opinion, it's a very clear physical hardship.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a follow-up question for Joe. I'll be brief. Joe, Mr. Cutler asked about the loading space. I think he was referring to an ordinance requirement. As a practical matter, do you need a separately designated loading space for this apartment conversion?
I don't believe so. We have, at the Kingsway apartment, we don't have a dedicated loading area. We also own the Aberdeen apartments on North Aberdeen Avenue. There's, again, not a designated loading area, and I think going through all the building changes and the various properties that we've owned, I've never been asked to provide a loading area on one of our sites for an apartment use.
And
You are proposing, though, to keep the retail, right?
Correct.
So this is not an apartment building. You're proposing a mixed-use building.
Yes.
the retail won't be changing in any way, correct?
No.
And is there designated loading space for the retail?
No.
There isn't one today,
No.
similar to many properties along Lancaster Avenue?
Yes, correct. Of all the other properties that we do not have a dedicated loading area.
Hey, George, I want to just point out that whether we go under the R5 that permits multifamily, or whether you go under the mixed use, under the C2, they both specifically say that you have to comply with, among other things, that section on the loading spaces, very specifically.
I understood what you were
There's really
saying.
nowhere to avoid it, no matter what your theory is. That's why
Well, I know that's, we may need relief from that as a technical matter, but I was putting testimony on that it's not needed as a practical matter. Is there any place to fit a loading zone in the nature that Mr. Cutler was talking about?
You didn't even ask for that as a variance. We couldn't even vote on that tonight anyhow, I don't think.
I think the notice is written very broadly. We tried to encompass every possible relief.
I mean, if you envision that somebody's moving into the building, all these tenants, where do they park the truck while they're unloading without taking up a parking space or blocking a driveway?
Likely they're moving in during the day. I would expect most of the parking spaces to be vacant during that time. That's generally been our experience. And the same application applies to not just apartments, to various apartment tenants, office tenants that leave. Generally movers are working during the day when that lower level would be out.
Because there's nowhere to go around them if they're in the driveway. So they'd have to take up the parking, which is specifically something they're not supposed to do when they're loading and unloading. That's all the sections of the code. That's why I asked the question.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
I think that's all we have. I would ask to move our exhibits into the record.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of anyone? No? Peter? Jim, would you like to do this one, please?
This would be my recommendation that the application be denied on the grounds that there's been an insufficient showing of hardship.
Noah?
Yeah, I would agree that it be denied because of insufficient hardship and also because of failure to conform with any of the reasonable requirements of any possible theory of the case under our zoning code. There's really nowhere to hide with regard to some of the issues, and nothing's been proposed.
Peter?
I concur.
I concur with.
I also agree. No other business. January 19th is our next zoning board hearing.
So we're not going to have our overflow meeting because there's no overflow.
There's no overflow meeting because,
The overflow.
Okay.
so everyone please have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Too.
And happy Hanukkah.
And to all a good night.